Pretty much nothing in dog training gets solved in one day. It's always conditioning, repetition, conditioning, repetition. I can train the dog to be a robot for people, but no one wants a robot. Everyone wants a pet. They want a companion. So I show people how to make the dog fit their lifestyle. I have clients like Steven, who works the dog fantastic. He works the dog beautifully. He puts a ton of effort into it because he wants a dog who's going to be perfect at the end of the day and is going to do all the things he tells her to do. Now I have other clients that go, oh, the dog's not jumping on people at the door anymore. The dog doesn't run away. They don't really listen perfect. Close enough. Now for me, I'm not happy with that result. I want the dog doing much better, but it's not my dog. If the dog is fitting your lifestyle and it's making you happy and the dog is happy, then I'm happy for you guys. But there's a lot of people who get 75% of the way to their goal and go, isn't this close enough? Then as soon as they stop, things start going backwards instead of forwards.
What can a regular person do when there's a dog like running after them?
If you're out in an open area, nowhere to run to, running from the dog is actually going to make it worse because it's going to enact their prey drive more. It's going to show them you're scared and they're 100% going to try to give chase. Stand your ground. Standing your ground is the best thing you're going to do. It's going to show the dog you're not scared and they're much less likely to actually try to attack you. Unfortunately, if you have a dog that is not quite as nervous and is actually a little more on the aggressive side, try to get some kind of inanimate object to stick between you and the dog. Something mobile. Don't ever turn your back on that dog. That's going to be their sign to, oh, this is my moment to try to strike. They're not looking.
Maybe this is crazy, but I heard if it's a male dog, go for the balls. Like, I just, you got to grab the balls.
I mean, good luck trying.
So a little bit ago, we had a speech pathologist on the show. And I said that she was basically helping us communicate with people, right? And so today I felt like it's kind of similar, but is the power of communication with dogs, right? Our four-legged friends, canine companions.
You don't have to enunciate to them.
Men's best friend.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Josh with us here. He's a dog trainer.
Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for coming down.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Josh Molinoff. I'm owner and operator of INLINE Canine, LLC. I started the business back in 2020, a little after COVID hit. I left my old job of training for right under 10 years. I was training there for a long time, obviously. Learned from a master trainer of over 45 years. That's where I learned how to train. When I was there, I dealt with all sorts of different training experiences, ranging from police dogs to literally service dogs for like people in wheelchairs. One thing we didn't actually handle is seeing eye dogs because they have to go home with someone for 2 years and live with them. And I personally wouldn't be able to give up a dog after they were mine for 2 years. After high school, I graduated. I went into school for accounting for a little bit, believe it or not. I didn't love that. I couldn't sit at a desk all day.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving. I bounced around a bunch of odd jobs, kind of looking for my calling. Couldn't really find exactly where I belonged. I ended up watching dogs for a couple of my friends a few times and just spending a lot of time with dogs and realized how much I loved them. Wanted to get into dog training, and that's how I wound up with the master trainer.
So it was like an accidental find.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So does it work the same way? It's like an internship. How do you get that opportunity?
It was more like a school. So I worked for him, but I also paid to be in the school. So I worked for him part-time, and I also went to school for him part-time. So for the first year I was there, I was just working and, learning what to do, learning how to train, all that kind of stuff. Once I was, qualified under his eyes, that's when I became a trainer. Started that there. I actually left for a few months, and ended up going back, and then was there for, like I said, at that point, it was about 8 years or so. And when COVID hit, things got a little rough at my old job. Things slowed down a lot. They didn't treat the employees exactly how I felt they should have. So that's when I ended up leaving. I ended up starting my own business and did pretty well for myself from there.
Were you always like natural around dogs? You felt comfortable, or was it something that you had to get used to?
No, I was always very comfortable around dogs, but I definitely had to learn a lot more from where I started
Right.
because I'd been around dogs my whole life, but I went from being around, the normal house pets to dealing with very extreme dogs, like I said, police dogs and all sorts of other dogs with behavioral
The reason I
issues.
asked is because it's like, for me, I'm always saying, like, I'm not afraid of my dogs. You know what I mean? And what the reason that happened was because when I had my first dog, as a kid, I always wanted a dog. So then we got a dog, and then, like, you're a kid, you're running around in the. I grew up in Brooklyn. You grew up, we're running around. There's a dog or whatever. It was tied up, and the owner's standing next to him. I'm like, hey, can I pet it? And she's like, yeah. So I, like, go for it, and the dog just launches at me. And I think that's what traumatized me for the rest of my life, where I'm like, listen, I'm not afraid of my dogs, but other people's dogs, I'm like, I keep my distance unless I know, who they are. So that's why I asked, is it something that you had to, because you came into it accidentally, right? Did you have to get used to, like
No,
man, somebody brings a pit bull, vicious,
Remember
angry.
when we had to walk those pit bulls?
Yeah,
Back
yeah.
in the day? Yeah.
So I always liked dogs, so I always felt relatively comfortable around them. I always had a sense of, like, when a dog was going to be a little more friendly, a little less friendly. That was a bit natural. But then when I actually started spending a lot more time with dogs, that's when I really started learning a lot more of the finer details, intricacies, and all the different
So there's, like, red
tells,
flags or
I'll
whatever,
say.
right?
Yeah, that the dog is looking at you a certain way, even their pupils changing, their body language, all these different changes they're going to make, because dogs don't communicate like humans communicate. They don't, have words and a language, so their language is body language. So the littlest change with them, they're going to pick up on. So you have to kind of learn a lot of those different changes they're going to make.
Were there any accidents?
Oh yeah, I've been bit plenty of times.
Is this true? They say dogs smell fear.
Yes and no. It's not so much that they smell the fear. They're picking up on your body language most of the time. But when your body chemistry changes, dogs actually can smell that. So not necessarily fear, but they actually use dogs for, like, cancer detection now, all sorts of medical issues.
So it's like you broke a sweat and he knows you're scared, right?
No, it sounds funny, but it's 100% accurate. Where they have even people with, like, gluten allergies, people that have, like, seizure disorders, where the dog will alert them when their body chemistry changes and they're about to have a seizure.
Yeah, I saw that online. There was a dog.
What is it?
That was trained, and the girl was about to have a seizure, so the dog actually opened the fridge and, like, brought something to her or something like that.
So depending
Before
on
that
exactly
happened.
the situation, depends on exactly how the dog's trained. But basically what it is, the body chemistry is going to change a certain way, and there's going to be a certain smell that comes out of that, whether it's whatever chemical it is in your body. Scientists can figure that out. They can actually get that chemical, isolate it, get it onto, a smell rag, we'll call it. Basically, it's just a towel where they can put a scent on it, and this way the dog can become familiar with that scent. So they train the dog to alert to that scent. And then, like I said, depending on the situation, depends on how they're going to train that dog to alert. So, like, just for example, with the police dogs, they call an active alert, where with drug dogs, a lot of the time, they want the dog to start barking, acting aggressive, kind of put people on the edge a little bit to go, uh-oh, the dog found something, we're in trouble. Now, as with bomb dogs, they want the exact opposite. God forbid someone has some kind of switch or something, they want that dog to sit quietly and go, hey, there's a problem over here, don't say anything, and get rid of the problem as quickly and quietly as possible. So even with, like, medical alert dogs, the seizure dogs can do different things where some are trained to, like, go get someone else. Some, like the dog you were talking about, was probably going to the fridge to get medicine for the girl.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's what
there's
it looked like.
a lot of different things they can be trained to do. And dogs are incredibly smart, where if you know what you need them to do, it might take a while, but you can usually train them to do what you need.
That's amazing, man. I've been trying to get my Yorkie not to pee in the house for 17 years.
Do you think it can smell anything though?
I didn't need it to smell anything, but I was just hoping it stops peeing. But there's many reasons why it's still doing it, and
Maybe it's sensing something. I don't know.
No, I think so. In my experience, my mother-in-law is a very kind person to the extreme. And so
She's listening.
There was a period of time we lived together, and the dogs were there, and they were during that time. Like, I was trying to teach them, don't go in the house, don't go in the house, and she loved them so much. Like, he would run and just pee, and I'm like, no, bad dog, and he's like, come on, stop it, he already did it. She's like, oh, you're so cute. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, stop. You're giving him the wrong, you know what I mean?
Sending the wrong signal.
That was, I think, what messed it up. I may be wrong. Maybe they're just bad. I don't know. But I've had 2. One passed away last year.
My condolences to hear that.
Thank you. So he was actually the son. This guy is living longer.
Really?
Yeah. He was the son. He died 16. This one's turning 17.
Wow, that's.
I read a lot about the fact that they're marking their territory when there was 2 of them, and that's why maybe they were doing it in the house because he asks to go outside as well. You know.
So I'll tell you several different things there. One, Yorkies are notoriously hard to house train. They tend to want to go to the bathroom inside. They tend to have accidents. 2, yeah, mom was spoiling a little bit. She definitely did not help the situation
there was also a part where, like, you know, I thought maybe I'm not walking with them enough. And so I distinctly remember this day when I went with both of them for like 2 hours. I was walking around. I'm like, I need you to go. I need you to go. You know, number 2, I needed you to go. Didn't go. I come home, take him off the leash. I walk upstairs, come right down. There's a pile of crap on the floor.
So there's also other things I'll say. So I was going to say with the peeing in the house, 2 males definitely going to sometimes run into that issue.
Do girls do that?
Not as common. It can happen, absolutely.
Okay.
But it's much, much less common with girls. But girls definitely do mark too. The other thing, though, if the dogs are a little bit nervous sometimes, they feel comfortable at home. So what happens is the backyard, they'll go to the bathroom. You take them out somewhere, they're kind of a new place now, even if it's the neighborhood where they've been quite a few times. Oh, now I'm nervous. There's loud noises. What's all this stuff going on? Especially with Yorkies who tend to be, quite on the smaller side.
Yeah.
Big hawk goes by overhead. They're all of a sudden terrified. Now they're like, hey, I'm trying to go home. The second you give them the freedom, oh man, I still got to go. Let me go hide somewhere where dad can't see real quick.
Yeah. So for 17 years, that's what I'm dealing with. But before that, we spoke on the phone. I told you I had a boxer.
Yep.
When I lived with my parents. When I moved out, my mom, I feel like she loved him more than she loved me at some point. You know, and I even joked with her. I wasn't going to take him, but I was like, I'm taking him with me. She's like, no, you're not. You know? But, I mean, amazing dog, man. 13 years, never, like, he did have, I guess a rebellious period. Mm-hmm. To which I had a very, I can talk about it. I had a reaction to it. I think maybe that's what stopped him. I don't know. But for like, out of the 13 years, for 12 or 11 of them, there was never an accident in the house. Yeah. Ever. And I came from that into the Yorkie situation. And I'm like, yo, what's going on?
Oh, it's a big change. You know? Big change.
Yeah. In terms of my reaction to him, he came up to my room once. He was like 8 or 9 months old. And he just walked around. He was sniffing around. He was a great dog always. And he just walked up to my couch, picked up his leg and started peeing. I was like, what are you doing? And he started growling at me. And I never seen him growl, but he looked vicious. You know, he's like, argh. I got so scared. Honestly, it was just a moment reaction. I took off my slipper and smacked him right across the face. That was the last time that dog went ever in the house, period.
Is that the right reaction? You have to show
No,
dominance.
that's definitely not the right reaction.
It was my reaction.
But that's where whacking him in the face with the slipper, you do want to correct the dog in that situation. They can't be allowed to growl at you and think that's acceptable behavior. Smacking with the slipper, definitely not the right answer, obviously. Did it solve the problem at the time? It seemed like
showed
it
him
did,
that
yeah.
I'm not happy with him. I get it.
That's where if you have a really tough dog and you do that, you'll probably be missing fingers afterwards. And you definitely aren't going to have a slipper anymore. I'll tell you that.
I mean, they don't make small enough slippers for the Yorkies. so I'm going to shit out of luck. I'm sorry.
What are the most common behavioral issues that people deal with dogs?
Jumping up on people, barking at the front door, pulling on the leash, all stuff that's easily addressable with some just basic training. And it's a lot of the time, not only training the dog, it's training the people afterwards as well. Because you'd be surprised how often people want to do the right thing with the dog, but have the wrong information or on the wrong track or just, misplaced guidance and are completely off.
So if they mess up the dog from the beginning, is it true that you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Is that
It's not true at all, but it definitely takes a lot longer. So like I actually trained a 13-year-old Yorkie before where the family had the Yorkie for years, obviously. They got 2 bulldog puppies thinking, oh, he'll love having some company. He did not love having some company. He was very upset with them and would constantly try to get into fights with them. And even as puppies, the bulldogs were already bigger than he was. So he had to very quickly learn that, no, you can't be trying to fight with them. I had to work with him for quite a while, get him to where he needed to be. He took a little bit longer than most of the dogs I trained, given he was a little bit set in his ways.
Yeah.
They really didn't walk him that much. He wasn't really around other dogs most of the time. So it took him a while to get used to the puppies, but eventually he got used to them. Then they would be around each other. They'd hang out and they still, like brothers and sisters would have disagreements, but there wouldn't be fights anymore. There wouldn't be, incidents. Nobody was trying to hurt each other anymore.
So if you have multiple dogs in the household, you have to train them all together, or?
It's definitely better that way, but depending on the situation, sometimes there's dogs that are causing the problem and some dogs are kind of just the innocent bystander. There's other situations where everybody's got their hand in the pot and is kind of stirring it, so to speak.
Is there like any particular approach, or like is it all around the same, but you, I guess, change a certain path towards a different dog?
So that's where every dog is an individual and you have to treat them as such. But the idea and concept of what we're doing is the same. So I like to teach obedience to show the dog what we expect out of them. When I say sit, there's a very certain thing I want you to do. I want you to put your butt on the ground, not move, not bark, not be fussing, not doing all these other things. So through these different commands that we teach, we're going to teach the dog how to also behave in different situations so that it gives the dog a lot more confidence instead of taking the confidence away. So for example, I'm going to make the dog sit when someone new comes up. So that way, instead of jumping on the person, the dog's going to be sitting. That way, when the dog does go to jump or try to get up or something, I'm going to tell the dog no, give them a correction, make them sit again. Then when the dog sits, they get the reward of the person saying hi. So instead of, let's say, for example, if the dog just goes up to the person and I say no and give a correction, the dog's like, wait, am I getting in trouble for going up to the person? Is that the bad thing? So then instead of being clear to the dog why they're getting in trouble, it actually causes more anxiety and confusion. So that's where we want to make it very clear to the dog what we expect so that in any kind of situation, I can give a command, the dog knows what to do, and I can show them how I want them acting in that situation.
How do you show the dog that, got in trouble? Is it like a 5-minute timeout?
No, so we're going to give a tug on the leash. We do use an e-collar. So the collar we use, you ever been to the chiropractor?
Once, a few times.
No.
Have you? Oh, have you ever had like the TENS unit on? That little like muscle electric stim thing? You know what I'm talking
Thankfully, no.
about? No, I like it, honestly.
Oh, wait, the one that was like, it's a little pulse, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what the e-collar feels like. The collar we use goes 0 to 100. We want to use the lowest setting possible where the dog's going to respond. So a lot of the dogs we train are relatively easy dogs, though we deal with very difficult dogs as well. But we train a lot of dogs off leash for people. They want to be able to go to the beach, take the dog off, go to the park, different things like that. Some people are good at dog training. Other people, not so much. To get the average person to be able to control their dog off leash, the e-collar is the easiest, simplest, and safest way to get it.
So essentially when you're training, you're also training the person, right?
Yes and no. So we train them separately. So what we do is
I mean, like you have to put them in a position where they're going to do what you want them to do.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
So we train the dog first. We get the dog to 100% so that we know when the person does what they're supposed to, the dog's going to respond the way they're supposed to. So for example, if like a lot of training classes, they go, okay, this is what you're going to do with your dog. They show you what to do. Now, you who's just learned are trying to give your dog instructions. That's kind of like going to college and the professor's like, hang on, let me check this book real quick. I just learned this last week. So that's where the way we do it, we want to train the dog, get them to 100%. We can show you, look, the dog knows all these commands. They're doing all these things on leash, off leash for us because we have the respect. The dog's conditioned to us. Now we're going to show you how to repeat the steps that we did so you get that same control and respect. So now you can take the dog to the beach, do all the things we're doing with the dog and have that same level of control.
I was curious about that. So the next dog that I've got my eye on is a Doberman. And when I'm like into a dog, I
Sweet
do
dog,
the whole
very sweet
I
dog.
do the whole research, everything. You know what I mean? So, things I noticed, they bond with a particular family member. Yeah, they could be good with the family, but they bond with someone particular.
You're correct.
So the question was like, what the first thing I started thinking, I'm like, okay, so let's say I come and ask for your services. You train my dog. My dog is going to love you. My dog is going to be bonding with you and listening to you. How does that transfer? You know, he'll come back to me, be like, who the hell are you?
The way we do it is we actually come to the house. We only take the dog for usually about 45 minutes, an hour a day, 4 days a week. We work the dog in all different kinds of situations where the first couple of weeks, we usually are just around the neighborhood. We're teaching the dog the commands the way we want the dog to do them. So we're going to teach the commands heel, sit, come, stay, down, as well as a big one, respect for the word no, plus things like off, drop, other things you're going to be using in your daily life. We're going to make that so the dog understands exactly what we want from them. When I say heel, the dog's going to walk right next to me on a nice loose leash, not going to pull, not going to fuss, not going to carry on, not going to try to run when it sees a squirrel or the other dog, stuff like that. So we start in the neighborhood where there's going to be less distractions, get the dog to make sure they understand these, commands and the things we're doing with them. Once they're doing good in the easier situations, that's when we're going to kick things up a notch. We start taking the dogs different places. We're going to go to the pet store. We're going to go to, a hardware store nearby, the local park. If, you tell me your kids play soccer and we have games at 5 o'clock, we're going to end up bringing the dog to a soccer game if that's what you say you want to do with the dog, to make sure the dog can sit there, not chase the ball, not lose its mind, all that kind of stuff.
Doesn't it build a bond with you as well?
Oh, it absolutely does. Yes.
So in that particular scenario, does that play a role or no? Or do you have to then reconfigure the dog somehow to like listen to him now?
Well, I'm not going to be the one reconfiguring the dog. You guys are, because that's where I show you how to push all the buttons. And that's where I get not only the love from the dog, I get the respect. But usually what happens is the dog's always going to love the owner more. That's where they get their food. That's where they spend most of their time. The owner's playing with them, doing all these fun things. But the dogs get extremely excited to see me most of the time because they know I'm taking them fun places. I'm doing fun things with them. But not only am I the fun guy, I also have control. So I have the respect. They know not to mess around. They know not to, jump on the counter when I'm there, all that kind of stuff as well.
I heard about you. I was told that you're like somewhat of a dog whisperer. Both my cousin and I believe you also did the other dog, the poodle, Eugene's, right?
Yep, correct.
Both of them are like, hey, this guy comes over and the dog just starts listening, So
that's
like, I don't know what he's saying, but
funny enough, in both those cases, as you said, at first it was just when I'm there, they're like, okay, well, the dog's perfect when you're here. What about when you leave? So I had to work with Eugene. I had to work with Steven. I had to teach them and their families what to do as well, so that this way they learned how to push the buttons the same way that I do it. So
that's the exact same thing that I was talking about. So
correct.
There was a point where you leave and the dog's like, all right, he's gone. I'm going to do whatever I want to do.
So while I'm working with the dog and I haven't started with the family yet, I literally tell the people, you'll see a little bit of the results here and there, but basically expect 99% of them to walk out the door when I go out the door. So that's where I'm getting all the respect at that time. And the dog knows what to do, but it's like having a little kid. If the little kid knows, well, dad's really strict, but as soon as he goes to work, mom lets me eat ice cream for breakfast. As soon as dad walks out the door, you know what the kid's going to do. But if all of a sudden now mom's being strict and following the same protocol as dad, now all of a sudden the kids are falling in line. Everybody's behaving themselves.
In the ideal situation, yes.
So is that because
in the ideal situation,
dogs are pack animals and they know who the leader is. And if you act like a leader, you establish dominance, then they'll fall in. Not exactly, right?
So what it is, dogs like guidance. Some dogs, and this is where dogs are individuals, so that's what I was saying before. Most dogs do want to be told what to do. They want guidance. They want to know what to do in different situations. They want to know how to make you happy. Now, again, I deal with very extreme dogs as well, where there's plenty of dogs I've come across that do not have that personality.
Yeah,
they don't want to make you happy. Lots of the police dogs I've dealt with are very high drive. Drive means how much they want something. So their food drive, their ball drive, their prey drive, how much they want something. You can basically chop off their legs and they're going to try to stumble over there on their stumps to go get whatever they want. Those are the kind of dogs I deal with the police a lot of the time. So that's where, I'll give you one example where at my old job, we would sell the police dogs. we would try to make recommendations to people depending on how experienced of a handler, exactly what they were looking for, because some police, they want the biggest, baddest, toughest dog out there. Others, no, I'm taking this dog into a lot of schools. It's going to be around a lot of children. They want different things out of them. Some of them are for patrol. A patrol dog is a dog who does bite work. That means, they're going to be taking down the bad guy, so to speak. If someone's, running from the cops, not cooperating, they're going to actually, go into action, defend their officer. Now, other dogs are just scent work dogs, detection dogs. That's where they're only going to be used for, finding the drugs, finding the bombs, different purposes like that, guns, money, all sorts of things. Some are dual purpose where they will do both. Again, it depends exactly what purpose they're looking for. But we had a new handler who was not very experienced. It was a woman, and she was on the smaller side. So
handler meaning from the police? Or?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah.
So she was a canine officer. Right. Her boss was there with her picking out the dogs. And he was very experienced, but he was very much, the hard-ass, tough guy. Yeah. Like, he likes having the tough dog. We had this one Belgian Malinois, which was a smaller dog, probably only about 50, maybe 55 pounds, which for a police dog is definitely on the smaller side. But when I tell you this dog was unhinged, he was a monster. So the boss was like, ooh, I want this one for her. He's little. He's going to be great. He's fierce. Like, it's going to go great. I'm like, no, this is not the one you want. Like, pick somebody else for her.
It's one of the most popular dogs for like
the police now.
Yeah,
yes.
For police, right?
Yeah.
So you went to the kennel with them, or?
No. What it is, we would import the dogs from Europe. So at my old job, it was a boarding facility, training, daycare, grooming. We did the whole kit and caboodle, so to speak. So we would have the dogs on site. They'd be shipped over from Europe, and the police would come to us to like check the dogs out, and they'd leave with them. So me and my boss both tried to talk him out of this dog for her. It was a great dog for the police, but it was not for a softer handler or an inexperienced handler. He was convinced that the dog would be fine for her. I want to say about a month and a half, 2 months later, they come back with the dog. It Swiss cheesed her leg several times because basically what would happen is in the heel position, the dog's going to be on your left-hand side. The dog would have something in his mouth, one of the toys they'd be, working the dog with. She would try to tell the dog to release. The dog would release the toy, grab her leg. She'd let go. The dog would pick the toy back up and go, okay, I won. So that happened for a while. Then the boss stepped in and goes, okay, clearly you can't handle this dog. I'm going to take him now. But now the problem became the dog learned, oh, I know how to make you let me go, and I can do what I want now. So the boss got tagged in the leg several times. And then he came back to us going, I need a little help with this dog. You were right. Too much dog for her. So
not for him, just for her, right?
Oh, no, he wanted to keep the dog. He ended up keeping the dog. He did a great job with the dog. Oh, no, he did fantastic with the dog. But it took a while to get the dog back in line. And what we ended up having to do was put the dog on 2 different leashes. And I would get into, I'll call it the Michelin Man suit. One of those big, giant suits where I'm all covered. And they would send the dog on me. The cop would come up next to the dog. But my boss would have a 30-foot leash on the dog, so he's very far away from the dog. And the cop would have his normal, like, working 6-foot leash on the dog. He'd come up next to the dog, but he'd get a little bit further away than normal. So then he would tell the dog to release. The dog would let me go, turn to bite him. But now, because my boss has the other leash, he can pull him in the middle and keep the dog away from the cop. So then they'd be able to settle the dog down, get him under control. Then we'd repeat that process until the dog finally understood, like, oh, I have to just let go and not try to turn on you. And that was about another month and a half of repetition.
I'm assuming everybody got bit at some point.
Oh, yeah. So
how does it feel being in that Michelin suit? Is it 100% protection or?
Oh, no, not at all. So there's different levels of it. So they have different, like, I'll call it like padding ratings, basically, where some of them are thicker than others. Some of them are like much heavier duty. but they also have just sleeves you can wear. And the sleeves are soft sleeves and hard sleeves, or some of them have like an actual metal bar. With those ones, you can feel a little bit of pressure, but it's very little. With the soft sleeves, I've had bruises. I've had where like the sleeve gets worn out. The dogs are coming through. I'll have little nicks and stuff. The sleeves can get really beat up. But usually, once the sleeve's getting that worn out, we're going to end up getting a new one.
What would be the point for soft sleeve?
It's more realistic to grabbing an actual body part versus with the hard sleeve, that's usually used for like sport training. So with sport training, they're not looking for sport training is going to look for different things than the police are actually looking for in a lot of cases.
So the dog needs to feel like it's biting into flesh. What if it's like instead of like a wooden stick or something? So it actually needs to feel something.
When the dog bites
crazy,
the hard
right?
sleeve, there's a bite bar, and it actually forces the dog to bite using the back of their mouth more when you do it correctly. With the soft sleeve, it's less concerning with the dog getting it all the way in the back, though that's still the correct thing. That's what you're aiming to do. That's what you want. But the soft sleeve doesn't assist the dog with that. Soft sleeve is kind of wherever they bite, it's going to feel the same. So the soft sleeve, you could do a leg sleeve. The hard sleeve, you're really only doing an arm sleeve. So that's where, depending what you're doing, like police dogs, they're going to be doing legs, arms, all different sorts of stuff. Most of the time in sport, it's mostly going for arms, but there's like all different versions of sport where some of them do full body stuff. Some of them do all different kinds of things.
What's the one that you remember?
In what sense?
The
like
one that left
bite?
the most impression. Yeah.
I can. So
the
I
one
can
you're
give you
like,
a couple
I'm ready
different.
to quit. Yeah.
I can give you a few different fun ones. So one time with the actual dog I was talking about, where I was wearing the Michelin Man suit. We always did that in the training room. The training room had a relatively it was like a laminate floor. So it was like a little bit slippery for the dogs. Not terrible where they're like slipping and sliding, but they're not maxing out their speed either in the training room. One day we decided to do it outside. I think I have the timing down in my head. I'm running. I'm like, here, let me look over my shoulder real quick just to make sure, because I think I still got a few seconds before he hits me. As I look, the dog's in the air going for my neck. I literally was lucky I had the full suit on. I popped my shoulder up. The dog hit my shoulder, rolled, and I kind of just popped back up. I was like, guys want to help here?
That could have been your neck, right?
That could have been my neck. And because that's where the suit has a little bit of a collar, but it's not a full, all the way up collar either, where that could have been really bad.
Is it the heavier dogs that are harder to pull? Is it the Mastiffs, the Rottweilers?
Not always. Sometimes, like that one Malinois that was only 55 pounds, he was one of the hardest biting dogs I've had to deal with.
It sounds like he left an imprint on you.
Oh, yeah,
right?
he definitely left an imprint. He was wild. I've had a couple other Malinois that were really up there. I've had other dogs on the sleeve, like Rotties and stuff. The smaller dogs that are crazier always pull harder than the giant dogs.
Really?
Now, when I catch a big dog, it's a little bit harder when they're flying at me, and it's 150 pounds versus 50 pounds flying at me. But when you catch the dog, if you're doing it correctly, you're kind of sidestepping and spinning a little bit, where you don't want to catch the dog dead on, and you almost want to step back and kind of pull in and cradle a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where spinning isn't really the correct explanation. You don't want to brick wall the dog. If the dog runs into you and hits a brick wall, you can literally damage their neck, break something, break a tooth. So there's a lot of things wrong you can do when you catching the dog there. But
I mean, and you yourself, you probably could get hurt.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially if you try to just I'm going to show this dog who's boss. Depending on the dog, you might get steamrolled.
Right.
So
no, because right now, when I had my boxer, we used to take him out to a dog park, and there was it just happened so that the place where we lived, everybody got a puppy at the same time, And so he grew up with all these dogs. There was like 13 dogs, all different breeds.
Yeah, so everybody knew each other.
Every day at 7 p.m. we would come out and they would just run. And this was like for like 10 years. They would just run and run. And that's why we actually going to go into a different topic a little bit, but that's why he was in like fabulous shape.
No, the fact you had a boxer get to 13 blows me away.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
fantastic.
we were surprised as well because I know they lived to like 11, right, or 12.
11's
tops,
good.
right? Yeah, so he lived for 13. I think it was mainly because he exercised every single day. It wasn't type of dog like because of that dog park. He was there for 2 hours every night.
I think that
at least
a
an
large part of
and all they do is
him
run,
staying in
run.
shape and
Right. And then he would come
around that
home, I
long.
remember, and just drop. And his tongue, he's like, he barely breathing, But that, and I mean, I don't know how controversial this is, but he ate home food. There was absolutely no dog food in our house.
See, depending on what you're feeding him,
Everything we ate. Well, I mean, look, nobody gave him the bad stuff, the chocolate or the grapes or whatever, nobody gave him that. But in terms of like, if we were cooking steak, whatever's left over, he gets the steak. If we're making chicken, whatever's left over, my mother made chicken particularly for him. She would boil a whole chicken with nothing in it, just water,
just plain chicken,
break it apart, and that's what he would eat.
So that's where I'll tell you two different things there. There is new research coming out showing, dogs eating fresh, healthy food is definitely better than them eating the, processed kibble and everything. There's still a lot of research coming out. There's some controversial. Some say yes, some say no. So there's a lot of argument going on there.
Right. So to actually make a point of it this way, look, my boxer ate everything we ate, and he lived 13 years. My Yorkie, if I give him a piece of chicken, there will be diarrhea for a week.
And
you know what I mean?
Get to my next point.
And like he cannot eat anything except a particular brand of a particular food in a particular form, meaning like it can't be even the flat one. It has to be the little pieces. Otherwise, and like, man, like I am really, coming off a boxer that gave me no problems, ate everything we ate, going into this dog that pisses and craps all over the house.
On this dog the wrong way. They're having a stomach problem pretty much. Yeah.
And I feel bad. Look, man, for the boxer, it worked.
Yep.
For the Yorkie, I tried. I was like, you know what? My boxer ate chicken. Let me make him chicken. I made him chicken. I processed it through a blender, so it's like mushy.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it to him lean. Crap the whole week. I was like, you know what? This isn't working for him.
What is that new food? I think it's on Joe Rogan's show. He advertises like Blue Dog or something, like it's supposed to be natural as opposed to kibble.
Something like natural dog.
Is
or
it
something like that.
the unkibble?
No, they send you the packets with real food or whatever, but it's for dogs or something.
There's so many different brands of it now. I mean, there's like Farmer's Dog. That's one
Maybe
where
that's-
it's...
maybe
See, in
that's
my
the
case, my dog traumatized me. Like, I don't want to try anything new. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
I know what works for him and just let him be.
What works for your dog?
It's just that one. They're not sponsoring. What do you
Well, maybe they will.
You know what I mean? Why am I supposed to name drop?
No, but listen, maybe people want to know. So you have
It's
this
the
thing
one
here.
that you get in Target. Don't worry about it. It's nothing
I
special.
got it for you. I remember what is it, pedigree or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
no.
That's the only thing.
But the point is, it's only one particular brand and only 3 flavors that work. We got him something else. A, either he doesn't like it, or B, he craps the whole house. And it's like, I feel bad for him almost. It's like, can you imagine eating the same thing every single day?
I mean, yeah, it's not my preference either. Let me be clear. I'm a foodie. I want to go eat a whole bunch of different things. But for some of the dogs, they're extremely sensitive with their diet, where you give them something off, as much as they're going to enjoy eating it in that moment, they're going to be suffering for it later on. Yeah. Plus, some dogs have medical conditions, just like people, where they're super sensitive. And funny enough, you gave the dog chicken. Chicken's actually, believe it or not, one of the highest allergens for dogs, where out of like proteins, that's like the number one allergen out of the like protein category for dogs. Now,
Trying to get my dog to eat steak. Come on, man. He's like, next thing, you got to get the Wagyu stuff.
He only likes the imported crab, actually.
Yeah. No. Don't buy him that cheap crap.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But no, that's where I had another dog I worked with before, that it was a dog from Europe, imported over, ate one food all of his life. I want to say he turned about like 5-6 years old. All of a sudden developed a severe food allergy. When I tell you, him and the vet went through, I think it was like 20 something different foods trying to find one. When I tell you he was on, and it was different like kibbles, but still it ended up being very expensive because he went through wild boar, kangaroo, duck, like all these, like wild rabbit, all these different proteins that are not things you would normally be expecting to be feeding your dog. And I forget which was the one he landed on that finally ended up working
Ostrich,
for him.
obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, was this
funny
recent?
enough? A couple years ago.
I was just wondering, maybe he got bit by that tick. You heard about the tick that?
No.
A tick bite
I
that
know exactly
you
what
get
you're talking
allergies
about.
to beef. Oh, like
Wait,
knock on
does it
wood.
only bite the animals?
no, it bites you, and people get allergic
And
to
you're
beef.
allergic to meat
You
after
can't
that.
eat
You
meat.
can't eat meat.
Wow.
Like I don't know what happens actually, but I heard that you can't eat
You
it.
have some kind of allergic reaction afterwards and you can't eat it. Yeah, oh, trust me, I'm praying I don't get bit by that.
I don't even go into the woods. I'm like, man, that's not my thing. You know what I mean? When the dog comes out, I check him. I mean, he's little, but so.
How do you make sure that dog doesn't bring anything from the outside?
So I live next to like almost a forest. There's a golf course, of course, here. We have a lot of deer.
All the beef ticks are probably over there.
They are. There's a lot of ticks. And so my dog brought a couple of ticks home before. It's the scariest thing for me because I'm like very scared of that stuff.
But it's on the dog. It's already bit into the dog, or
So when he's done, he's gonna unlatch and he's gonna like. I found one on the floor, full.
wow.
So believe it or not, depending on what the disease is, some of them don't transfer immediately. So like with Lyme's disease, the tick has to be on there for a while, usually for the dog to actually contract it. So that's why with a lot of they call them preventatives, they're actually, the way it works is the tick bites them and then the tick dies after the fact and falls off.
So it's not
But it
really
doesn't-
preventing the disease. You know what I had a question about, man?
Wait, I'm confused. What?
I took a dog to the vet the other
Well,
year.
no, it usually will prevent the disease because what happens is when the tick dies, it ends up falling off.
Did you ever
So
have
then-
Lyme disease? Did you ever hear of Lyme disease vaccines for humans?
No, but I know
Okay.
they have them for the dogs now.
So I went to the vet. I'm sitting in the parking lot while he was clipping his nails. I came out for a cigarette. I'm standing outside in the parking lot. I see, get your vaccine today for Lyme disease. I'm like, the dogs get it and we don't? Like, what kind of crap is that? How is it that the dog has a vaccine for Lyme disease and the person doesn't?
So
I'm not asking
not
you to
sure-
answer
oh,
that.
no, I know that.
I'm just saying, like, it was interesting to me that, listen, I was standing there. I'm like, are you serious?
So on that, I'll explain it the way my vet explained it to me. Because my vet, and just like doctors, some vets are very much, oh, your dog coughed a little bit. Let me run 16,000 tests and make sure everything's okay. That'll be $10,000. Thank you. Other vets are very much in it for the interest of the dogs. So that's where it's just like any other profession. Some people do it for the money, and other people are very much doing it because they care about
they
what
love
they
it.
do.
Yeah, they love their job.
So like my vet, I swear by the woman, I probably would let her operate on me before any other doctor I've met. And the way she explained it to me is it's a risk factor. So dogs are at a much higher risk than people for ticks most of the time.
right.
So she even says to me, like, my dogs aren't really out in the woods very much. I bring them to the beach a lot, but there's not really a lot of ticks on the beach. She knows that. You don't need the Lyme disease. You don't
Yeah.
need the lepto one. Like, there's a bunch of different tick-borne illness diseases that actually, well, I shouldn't say a bunch, but there's several now.
I feel like
that have the vaccines
The
for
meat
them.
one is the scariest. I'll be
That,
honest.
believe me, if
You
they had,
can eat sushi for the rest
Man,
of
you
it.
get Lyme disease, you get an antibiotic. You get this, you can't eat meat.
if they come out with a vaccine for that one, I'm getting it, believe me. But that's where my vet constantly tells me, like, if you think they're at risk for something, you should absolutely get it. My one dog who is younger, I have 3 dogs. I have a German Shepherd who's 13.
I love those.
I have a Golden Doodle who is 12, who's going to be 13 soon enough.
Didn't you want to get a
and
golden
then,
doodle or whatever?
Because it's hypoallergenic. So what you have here is a guy who had dogs his whole life and someone who always wanted dogs his whole life, but doesn't have one.
And still doesn't.
Still
But
doesn't.
he's
Still
on his way.
doesn't.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you had the third
Yeah.
dog.
And
do, yeah.
my last dog is a foster failure. I
Okay.
went to foster her, turned into my dog. She is a lab husky pit mix. So I have a wide variety. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a mix.
Oh yeah. She looks mostly like a lab, has the head a little bit more of a pit bull and like the face a little bit
you're
more
gonna have
pit
to show
bull.
it to us later.
Oh, I
Later,
definitely
later,
will.
yeah.
And then the husky She has one brown eye and one blue eye, and she has some of the husky temperament.
I was gonna ask,
and a little bit of the tail. So that's the people I had gotten her from originally had DNA tested her, and they knew that's what she was.
21andMe. They sold it to the.
You know who has her
China.
DNA now?
They have some dog ones, and they have a couple different brands like Embark and stuff like that. But they have all completely different personalities, and she is much more active than the older ones. So I'll still take her like different places a little more frequently, and like I get her some more of the tick stuff because I have a client who has like 100 acres out in like farmland, and it's got some like woodsy stuff on it. And I'll take her there, and there is a lot of bugs, and like I'll go hiking with him on the property and stuff, and it's beautiful. It's really nice, and it's great. I used to bring all the dogs, but now that the older two,
Did you ever have to take them out?
what do you mean? Oh yeah, plenty of times. Yeah,
They
it's
show it
happened.
so easy online. Like, oh, no, it's not that easy, man. I took one out.
Depending on how dug in the tick is, it can be much harder or much easier.
For me, it was, yeah.
They actually have this new thing called the tick puller now that
The
makes
one
it
that
so
spins,
easy.
right?
Yeah, you just kind of hook it in and then spin. It pops them right off very easily.
That's interesting.
What happens if a piece remains?
Well,
in
that's the problem. That's
Right.
what you don't want to happen
Well,
because
right.
you get infected.
Correct. So that's where with this, the way it does it is it kind of scoops under the head, and then when you twist, it just pulls the whole thing right out. So that's where with like the tweezers and stuff, you know, the old school
Yeah.
way of getting them out, it's a little harder. I've seen people where they pop the tick. That's the worst thing you can do is because if you squeeze the tick, you can squeeze some of their stuff back into the dog. That's much more likely to pass disease and things along that way. You want to try to grip them by the head and pull the whole thing off in one shot.
And the head is inside, right?
It's not inside. It's like the pincers or whatever you want to call it.
Uh-huh.
Not
Like little
tick
tweezers,
expert there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But,
you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. They're little pincers what they grab
Yeah,
on
that's
with.
not what he's here for.
He's not a vet.
he's not a tick expert.
But basically what they do is they grab on and that's what they're holding on with. But some of them are smaller and they can kind of like shove their head into the skin a little bit. They are a little harder to get out. But especially if they like are on there for a while, they swell up, then it usually can pretty much pluck them right off.
I was curious about when you were talking about like you training the dogs and they attack you, right?
Yep.
One of the things I wanted to know was if you have any kind of particular advice of like what would a regular person what can a regular person do when there's a dog like running after them? Like there's many videos online that you see, especially there was a one with a pit bull where the guy jumped the fence, you know, the lady couldn't hold him.
Correct.
Like what would you do in that scenario? Is there anything you can do?
So it very much depends on the situation. If you're out in an open area, nowhere to run to, running from the dog is actually going to make it worse because it's going to enact their prey drive more. It's going to show them you're scared, and they're 100% going to try to give chase.
Don't sweat.
Yeah, exactly. Don't sweat. Now, ideally, best situation, you have a door you can get behind, you know, you walk out of the house, you see the dog running at you, you go right back in the house, jump on top of the car, get in the car if it's, you know, your car.
The reason I ask is I had a similar situation with a small dog though, but it made me think. I went out to throw out the trash. I'm walking down the driveway and I guess it was a lost dog, whatever. And he ran right at me. Like I kind of froze and he was a small dog. He was like, one of those either Japanese.
You kicked my
He
dog?
looked like an Akita, but like a tiny one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like
Shiba?
middle, probably, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I kind of looked at him, you know, and I'm like, yo, what do you want? And he just ran by and I was like, what if he would attack me? Like what? I'm like in the middle of, in my slippers. What am I doing?
So several things there. One, stand your ground. If you don't have somewhere to go, standing your ground is the best thing you're going to do. It's going to show the dog you're not scared and they're much less likely to actually try to attack you. Most dogs are anxiety ridden.
Driven.
And yes, and that's where most dogs that want to act like that towards unfamiliar people aren't actually tough dogs. They're very scared and they do what I call the mailman effect. So the mailman comes to the door, the dog goes running, rah, 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 I'm so big, I'm so scary. The mailman sticks the mail through the slot and leaves. The dog's like, wow, I'm really tough. I scared them away. That worked so well. We know the mailman was just dropping the mail off and they were leaving anyway, but in the dog's mind, oh, this works great. So that's where that comes from. All of a sudden now they get what a lot of the little dogs have, the Napoleon complex.
Yeah.
Arr, 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 you don't want to come over here. I'm big, I'm tough. And they charge at you. But then all of a sudden when you stand their ground, they go, oh, wait, you're not scared? Why aren't you running away from me? You're not running like that other guy did. Ooh, now I'm not sure what to do in this situation. Now, unfortunately, if you have a dog that is not quite as nervous and is actually a little more on the aggressive side, try to get some kind of inanimate object to stick between you and the dog. Something mobile, a chair, some kind of like small like table.
When we were talking about, before you came on, I remember I was like, listen, I think I might be wrong, but if I'm not, I think I remember being in school and they were like, we used to walk home from school pretty long distances and it was fine. You know what I mean?
Barefoot.
Yeah, barefoot.
Up a mountain.
Exactly. In the snow. And so they would actually give us like some kind of advice. One of the classes was like, if you ever have a dog attack you, best thing you could do, pull out a book and shove it in his mouth.
That's exactly.
And I'm like, I'm going to ask him about it because I'm like, does that really make sense? Because I heard other things.
A book would honestly work great. It's anything you could put in between you. A book is a little bit on the smaller side personally for me. I'd like something a little bit bigger than that. Because a book is still small enough that if the dog bites, you might get a finger caught in there or something.
Yeah, but the idea is to like basically put something between you.
Correct. Trying to put something in between yourself and that dog, and then don't ever turn your back on that dog. Because that's going to be their sign to, oh, this is my moment to try to strike. They're not looking.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Even in the house, some nervous dogs, they'll be kind of weird with the person, but if the person's sitting, the person's facing them, they'll kind of keep their distance. Now, all of a sudden, the person gets up, either goes to leave or go to the bathroom, goes to walk away, isn't facing the dog. All of a sudden, dog tries to grab him in the back of the ankle, give him a little nip, something like that.
So about that, I also heard, maybe this is crazy, but I heard if it's a male dog, go for the balls. Like, you got to grab the balls.
I mean, good luck trying.
Where are you on that, by the way? Should we cut him off?
It depends. If you're gonna breed the dog or you're gonna use the dog for competition or another use like police service, something like that, the little bit of testosterone is not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
For me, for like a house pet, just like a normal average dog, you should cut them. But a lot of research now actually shows, depending on the breed, depends on exactly when you should do it. The larger the dog, the later you should cut them because you want to let the dog pretty much fully develop before actually getting the neutering.
Are you traumatizing the dog? That's the whole big issue with doing that if it's a male dog, right?
Not usually. Most of the dogs, getting them chopped off is not really the issue. Them waking up being a little drunk, they're like, what the heck happened? They're in a little pain and stuff. But having them chopped off,
feel like they're missing out.
No, not at all. Because what a lot of people think is like, oh well, I've heard so many times like, oh, my dog humps, like I'm gonna get him chopped off. He won't do that afterwards.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Does not work. So that's a learned behavior a lot of the time, or it's something that's just ingrained in the dog. Where I've seen dogs that don't have them that hump. I've seen girl dogs that hump.
I've seen that too.
I've seen boy dogs that have them that don't hump. So that is very much more like of a personality trait than it is actually the dog being intact or not.
Is the same for female dogs? Are there any issues if you do that?
A little different with females just because they run the risk of pyometria, which is like when dogs go into heat, it's like a disease related to that, which it does run a risk. It's much worse in cats than it is in dogs. But the other issue with females,
therefore you should do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it's not
have to watch their cycles, right? As well.
Correct. Yes.
So if you don't want to do that,
correct. And the other problem, if you have a female that goes into heat and you are around any kind of male dogs,
you're screwed.
It's going to definitely change their behavior. Also, the female, when they go into heat, their attitude will change a little bit.
So when you said you had your dog run around with the other dogs, how does that work?
There were no females there. It was
Like all boys club.
It was a boys club, yeah.
But in general, like when you
And maybe there was actually, but it was probably neuter or spayed.
fixed,
They're
yes.
fixed. Yeah.
how do these parks work? Like every
So
dog has
dog
to
parks,
be.
they're supposed to be either fixed or spayed after 6 months. Pretty much.
And if
Okay,
you
so-
sneak your dog without that, he's like the big boss.
Let me
or-
make a correction though. I said it was a dog. It wasn't really a dog park. There
It was just a park and
it was
you
a
guys all
baseball
went,
field.
yeah.
It was at 7 p.m. There was nobody there. It was closed. You could close the gates, and it was just a baseball field.
So you just
And
guys let all the dogs
listen,
off and let
they
them
let
run.
us. First of all, nobody really complained because we always cleaned up after our dogs. It wasn't like we weren't trying to make a problem. We were trying to actually just enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, we became friends as the owners. You know, and like it was
Yeah.
a it was
same
a
with
It was
cool
a
thing.
nice little community
Yeah,
thing.
it was like a little community thing, right? So it worked out that way. But yeah, you were saying that for particularly dog parks, there's certain rules, right?
So I personally don't love dog parks because at dog parks, you're trusting that everyone's dog is one, either spayed or neutered. I've seen dogs that are not at dog parks. I've seen dogs that are temperament wise should not be at the dog park. Not that friendly, nervous with new dogs, you know, very unfamiliar, shouldn't be there, very uncomfortable. And the people are trying to get them used to it. But the people also don't have any control over the dog. So then when the dog goes to act out, they're basically a bystander and they're just, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
Plus, you're trusting, oh, none of the dogs are sick. Everybody's up to date on their shots. You know, nobody ate anything weird that they're throwing up, and now all the dogs are eating the throw up and all that kind of fun stuff.
But isn't that a natural environment for dogs to be in packs?
So dogs have evolved from wolves. So wolves are very much pack animals. A lot of dogs like to be in a pack. You are not wrong. They like having the company, but plenty of dogs don't. I've met tons of dogs that hate being around other dogs. Dogs
Aggressive
like
dogs.
not even. I've met tons of like nervous dogs
Yeah.
that they won't act out, they won't be bad, but you'll see they're going to be sitting in the corner like this the whole time, and the other dog comes over and they're leaning away going, "Oh, please just leave me alone." So some of the dogs don't enjoy being around the other dogs.
Well, there's also that part that you're the pack.
And
right?
that's what I was getting
Is that
to.
what, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. That's where the dogs bond with people now. Dogs know people are different than them, but they look at us for guidance. They look at us as their leader. They look at us as their caretaker. They know they are supposed to be there for us because we'll be there for them.
Unless you're a pushover, then they'll guide you.
Yeah.
No, he's
No,
not
there's
wrong.
there's some breeds I'm sure that are, like I've read about because I'm interested in the Doberman. If you don't, guide that, they will guide you.
So Dobermans are another breed that some breeds have been bred down where their original traits and the things people loved about the dogs are either not there as prevalently or they started to have other issues now. Like Dobermans are known for being this big, proud, strong dog. Do you know how many I meet with massive amounts of anxiety now? Because
that?
one, the breeding's been overdone where people aren't doing a good job with the breeding necessarily in some cases. And then in a lot of cases also, the dogs are very high energy. When the dogs don't have a good outlet for that energy, they end up finding bad outlets for that energy. So that's where a lot of dogs get left at home alone, and they wind up with separation anxiety. And it goes from, oh, I'm just home alone, it's not a big deal, to now I'm home alone and destroying the house. You get home to the couch ripped up, the curtains ripped down, the wall chewed through or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different things they can do.
Why is it that they do that?
Anxiety.
Separation anxiety. So a dog has a lot of energy. If they don't get that energy out in a positive way, they're going to look to get that energy out in a negative way. And that's usually chewing in a lot of cases, sometimes barking, all different, destructive habits they can do. But a dog has a certain amount of energy and they need to release that energy.
Yeah.
So you can control that to a certain extent, like a dog that like your boxer. You used to run him all the time, but on the days when it was absolutely downpouring out,
Yeah.
he didn't get to go for that run.
Well,
but
so
it
I was going to
didn't
say,
mean-
you mentioned something just now, and I'm like, I remembered that we did find at certain times there was like little like holes in the, not holes, but like grinds in the wall with his teeth. And I was like, what is that? And I mean, we didn't know. My dad's like, maybe he needs vitamins, calcium or whatever. I'm like, I don't know if there's any calcium in the drywall.
So what it is, so I'm going to make up an example really quick, but let's say one of the days it was rainy for 3 days in a row, super heavy. You couldn't take the boxer out. You played with him a little bit in the house as much as you could, but you know, he's a boxer. He likes to run. You're not playing with him that much in the house. Let's be serious here. That third day, everybody leaves the house. They're at work. You go to school or whatever, you know, because you were younger at the time. All of a sudden, that's the day you come home and you notice, why was he chewing on the wall a little bit?
Yeah.
That's weird. He never does stuff like that. He's got all this energy pent up from 3 days. And he's like, I gotta go, guys. I gotta go. And that's where you had a good dog. He had a lot of self-control. So there wasn't a massive hole in the wall when you got home. But some dogs don't have that level of self-control. Some dogs' anxiety is way worse than that. Some dogs, their energy level is way worse than that. Some dogs have both the anxiety and the energy level. And then you're really looking at a little bit of a headache there unless you get that stuff out in the positive way. And when you can get it out in the positive way, playing fetch, running the dog, even working the dog with the commands, even though it's not that physically demanding of the dog in a lot of cases, it's very mentally strenuous. So like when you send the kids to school, they have a hard day at school, they take like a big standardized test or something. Were they running around all day like crazy? No. But they come home like, oh,
yeah,
Dad, I want to go sit down and watch some TV and just relax for a little bit. I need a break. Same thing with the dog. So you put them through those paces, you give them that mental stimulation. Now they're not releasing that energy in that same negative way.
What would be like a perfect dog, or some of examples of a perfect dog for people that never had a dog, which is like,
so it depends on the lifestyle is a big part of it because people all want different things.
but I mean, like maybe within those lifestyles, maybe I know there's active, there's, you know, people that just like to sit at home, right? But there are like breeds that are just easier than others to manage. I mean, you know what I mean? Like I've had 4 dogs, so I understand that, you know, like Yorkies, they're home dogs, man. For them, this house, they run around through the kitchen and it's like my dog was running in a dog park. You know what I mean? Also, because the house is not that big, I understand I want a Doberman. I understand he needs a backyard. He needs to run. He needs to get that energy out, right? But I understand that because I had dogs and experience. He didn't have a dog. So now you were looking, what were we looking at?
It's a
cockadoodle or?
No, not a cockadoodle, although those dogs are really cute. Oh man, like not Berkshire Doodle. Bernedoodle. There you go.
Yeah, a Bernese Mountain Dog and a
like, does he know what he's getting into? He probably doesn't.
No,
have
Bernedoodles are good dogs. So that's where, so like my top 3 entry level, like new dog owner dogs, I would recommend Golden Retriever is always going to be a great choice. They'll have a little bit of energy, but a lot of the times you can get them to be a couch potato too. As a puppy, obviously, you're going to need to run them around and get some exercise, but also
sweet, they're gentle dogs, right?
Correct. You're going to have a really sweet, nice, good-natured dog almost all the time. You have to give them some exercise. You run them around for an hour or 2 a day. They're going to be on the couch with you the rest of the time snuggling. I like doodles for new owners where I prefer like Golden Doodle and Bernedoodle are my top 2 doodles, I'd say, but there's plenty of others like that fall under that same category, like Cavapoo, Cockapoo are all, you know, that same doodle category, the half poodle.
Making it up. Like, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying people are just like, yo, let's cross these 2.
Yeah.
With the crossbreeding, so here's how my honest opinion on that. They're great dogs, but it's not real breeds. So with a breed, what a breed standard is, so like a Bernese Mountain Dog. You can take 2 Bernese Mountain Dogs, breed them, and you get more Bernese Mountain Dogs. If you take 2 Golden Doodles, for example, and breed them together, you're going to get puppies that look completely different. You're going to get 1 or 2 that look like mom and dad, and then you're going to get like 8 that all, 2 of them have wavy hair, 2 of them have this other type of hair.
The genes that mom and dad have, but are not,
correct. You're going to get the recessive genes.
Yeah. Right.
So then you're going to get all different types of variations. That's not technically a breed. So are they great dogs? They are fantastic, but they're not a breed standard breed either, if that makes sense. But like, again, for a new owner, hypoallergenic a lot of the time, even though the hypoallergenic, it doesn't mean the dogs are 100% allergen free. What it means is the type of dander they generally have is going to be less reactive to most humans. And it also means the curly coat holds in more of it. So unless you're basically rubbing your face on the dog, you're going to have less of a reaction. They're dropping it less around the house.
They don't shed as much, right?
Correct, because of the curly coat.
Right.
Before you get a dog, I would actually go to like a shelter or some other kind of place where they have a couple, variations of a type of dog and touch a couple different ones. And, or even if like you have friends with different dogs, go to their house, spend a little time there and see how you react.
You got to take my Yorkie and just be like that, bro.
No, that's dramatic. But seriously though, I'm mildly allergic to dogs where pit bulls, Great Danes, any of those super short-haired breeds, if I touch them and directly touch my face, I'll turn red a little bit and like not like swell up like I'm gonna explode or anything, but like people are like, "You okay? You look like kind of red right now. Like something happened?" And I'm like, "Oh, must have touched the wrong kind of dog or something." But like 90% of dogs that I touch, no issue whatsoever. Like I can take your Yorkie and rub them on my face and I'll be completely fine.
Dog number 3.
Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
Okay.
They are a great dog for the person who's not going to be active, just wants that couch, cuddly, snuggly.
Are they the ones that are like super cute? You got to put a little bow on them and they're like...
You do not have to put a bow on
them.
them.
From Sex and the City had that one.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
I was going to say, I don't know that reference, but
they're like
have,
show
the big
dogs.
eyes.
They're like
yeah, they're cute little things. They're like white and tan a lot of the time, right? Or like orange.
High maintenance. You got to cut them. You got to make those little. Otherwise, it's gonna look like just any other dog, right?
They do have to get cut, but they're not. I think you might be thinking of a Shih Tzu.
No, I know what a Shih Tzu is.
Okay, yeah, because the Shih Tzu, I see them with bows all the time, where they have their little hair tied up and they got a little bow in it and everything. The Cavaliers are a very sweet, nice, easygoing dog. They're more of like, they're a little big to be like a purse dog for girls, but that's like their temperament. They just want to be held, want to be loved, very low energy most of the time. That's exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yep. But so are they just easier to deal with? They listen better? I mean, out of the dogs that you mentioned.
Obedience-wise, they're not that great, honestly.
Okay.
They're more just a very easygoing, soft. That's not a dog I'm really going to be worried about taking something and growling at me over it or anything like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So then I guess going off of that, what would be like the top 3 working dogs in your experience?
So working dogs, Belgian Malinois is number 1. Belgian Malinois is a dog that if you're going to be working an 8-hour shift and you want a dog working that entire time, you're going to work that 8-hour shift. And he's like, we're doing overtime, right? So
not your dog, right?
Nah. That dog is a dog that's not going to turn off. That's a dog you can't take days off with.
Yeah.
A German Shepherd is number 2 because that is the most versatile in my eyes. A German Shepherd you can do absolutely anything with. German Shepherd could be a working dog. German Shepherd could be a house pet. They can do search and rescue. They could be, a service dog for, someone that needs, like the wheelchair person. They need someone for the seeing eye dog. You want, for the seizure detection, German Shepherd can do it.
They're amazing. Actually,
they literally can do
favorite.
Anything you want.
The only problem with them is they call them German Shedders, right?
And that, the hair is going to be everywhere.
I know.
That you're not getting rid of that. Shepherd. That you're not getting rid of. For third, it depends exactly what service you want out of a working dog. So like golden retrievers can be great working dogs if you get the right type. No, you can get like a great like seeing eye dog out of a golden retriever. Labs are really good. Another thing that's actually becoming extremely popular that isn't one of my personal favorites, but it is really good for working. German short-haired pointers. They are very strong-willed, very high drive a lot of the time, and they're much less intimidating looking than like the German Shepherd and Belgian Malinois, but can also be a very tough dog if you need. And they're very popular for like hunting and things like that. They're bird dogs. So also again can be used for things like that. I've seen giant schnauzers, black Russian terriers. There's all sorts of ways you can go. But for third, I'd probably say if you want just like an easier, if you want a tough working dog for the third choice, I would say German short hair pointer. If you want one that's going to be, you know, in airports and schools and going more places and people are going to be petting you more, I'd say a lab. Because that you can still
They're
get a very
popular
high
dogs.
drive dog that can work great and do a good job, but it's going to be super friendly and outgoing and, you know, want all the kids to pet it and everything.
But they're also, they're very popular in service. Like if you notice, a lot of the dogs are labs, right?
Correct.
How do you pick a puppy? Like, so
that's a great question. So again, it depends a lot for what you're looking for in the dog. You never want the puppy that's sitting in the corner, scared, doesn't want to come up, because they're going to have a ton of anxiety already. And if you want that dog, just know what you're getting into, because that's going to be a dog who needs a lot more building up and working with versus the dog who's running right over to you, jumping in your lap. But you also don't want a dog that, like, when you go to look at a puppy, I always like to look at their teeth, look at their ears, you know, kind of mess with them a little bit. I'm going to look at your paws and hold them real quick. How are you going to react to that? Most puppies are going to argue a little bit. They're going to fuss, but they're not going to give you an attitude. They're not going to get nasty or anything like that. If you have a young puppy and you're trying to look at their teeth and all of a sudden they're growling or giving you an attitude, that's going to be an extremely strong dog. And if you're not a very experienced handler, that is not going to be the dog for you.
So generally, when you pick out a puppy, from what I heard, because I picked a few, you had to, like, I picked out, his name was Caesar, the boxer. Picked him out at actually at a breeder. I found a breeder. We went to the ranch. We saw the mom, the dad, the cousins, the everything, the whole, you know, the whole family and their in-laws. And first I came to pick him up. The way I chose mine was I just wanted a big dog. And he was like, there was like these little puppies, and there was him.
Because he was older?
And I'm like, no, they were all from the same litter. He was just the biggest one. I'm like, I want that one.
No, the size can really vary with the litter sometimes. Like sometimes
they were all
one
similar.
Who's huge compared to the others.
It looked like he ate the
There's
others.
a runt a lot of the time where one is smaller. So that's where, what's funny though, is the bigger one doesn't always wind up being the biggest one of the litter.
Maybe. I don't know who became, right?
No, of course.
But he was the most amazing dog I ever had. Do people ask you to go with them and pick out a dog?
Oh yeah, I've done that before.
You offer those services, yeah?
Oh yeah.
So you say you look at the ears, you look at all those things for them.
Correct. And when I'm doing that, it's not really, I do want to look at the ears, make sure there's, you know, okay, the ears are clean, the dog's not in bad condition or anything like that. I want to look at the teeth, make sure the teeth are correct. There's not, you know, crooked, going the wrong way,
right?
Yeah, deformities, anything like that. But it's also a temperament test for the dog. How the dog reacts to all those things I'm going to do tells me about the dog. How much they fuss, it depends on, you know, some dogs you're going to pick up and they'll immediately, oh, look at me anywhere. You can do whatever you want with me. That's going to be a very soft, easy going dog, you know, more laid back, you know, more submissive. You get a dog that you pick up, and as soon as you try to pick them up, they're wiggling, trying to make you let them go. I'm getting out of here. I'm doing what I want. That's going to be a dog who's a little more independent, a dog who's got their own plans. You know, they want to do what they want to do.
I actually never thought of that. Why not take a trainer and pick a good dog? Because you deal with dogs every day. You know what I mean? Who would be better to say, you know what I mean? Is this a good dog or not? Or sometimes there's like, you know, you wouldn't pick up on these things, but sometimes there's people who are breeding and they're not really breeders. You know what I mean? They just got a barn and 2 dogs, and they're like,
oh, that happens
now we're breeders.
a lot,
you know,
more than you think.
And then you get a dog, and the dog has problems that, like, I've seen dogs that have problems that, like, there's simple problems, but there's still problems. You know what I mean? That you have to deal with throughout the whole life of a dog.
How do you choose a breeder? Yeah, is that
Several things. One, you want to ask, well, first off, just online looking at the breeder's reputation. That's a big deal. If you're already reading bad things online, probably not a good start. But one, you want to ask about the parents. They should be happy to send you pictures of the parents, tell you all about the parents, show you the parents when you go to look at the dogs. If they don't want to show you the parents, show you the condition of the parents, at least one of them, something is wrong there. Because they're breeding, they should have either the mother or the father. Sometimes what happens is if they have the father, part of the way they sire the dog out is, yes, I'll let you use my dog as the father, but then I want one or two of the puppies or something like that. That's my payment.
Right.
So there will be times where, I don't have the mother.
But they would have
the
pictures
dad.
and stuff,
Correct.
right?
They're going to have the information, the dog's background, all that kind of stuff.
That's how I got my second Yorkie.
So if they don't want to show you those things, you go to get the dog. The dog is in bad condition, all covered in, excrement. They pull the dog out of a tiny little crate or something like that. These are not good signs, because I've trained what we call puppy mill dogs, where the dog came out of a place where this dog lived in a crate its whole life. Its mom lived in a crate most of its life. As soon as the dog had puppies, they're trying to get it pregnant again and have the next litter. The dogs are literally crates on top of crates on top of crates. They don't even get taken out. They're just going to the bathroom on themselves and they're getting food dumped in there. A lot of pet stores and things like that have become so unpopular. And when I say pet stores, I don't mean like, Petco, PetSmart, stuff like that. I mean the places that would sell puppies and stuff like that.
I mean, that's particularly what the thing you're saying is particularly why I looked out for a breeder.
And yes,
because I heard bad things. And you know what I mean?
A lot of the puppy stores, that's where they get their dogs, because the dogs are the cheapest there and they can get them in large numbers because they're not worried about the quality of the dog and the care of the dog. They're worried about how many can we get to sell. So it's the same thing with the puppy mill breeder themselves. They're like, I don't care what this dog looks like, what quality, care, any of that stuff. I'm just trying to get rid of as many of them as I can. So a good breeder, they're going to wait at least one heat in between when they're breeding their dog to let their body, get back into shape, if you want to call it that, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things you can look for. You want to see that, one, they're taking good care of the parents, whichever one they have, or if they have both. You want to see the dogs are in a good conditioned area. So like they'll have what's called the whelping box. So if you go to look at the puppies when they're like extremely young, they're still going to be with the mom a lot of the time. And they're going to be in like a big boxed area where it's like a raised wall where the mom can get in and out, but the puppies are basically stuck in. It's going to get a little dirty sometimes. There's going to be stuff in there, but that's normal because, you have to keep it clean. But, when a mom has 12 puppies, you're not going to be able to clean it every single time one of the dogs goes to the bathroom. But at the same time, that's very different than going in and all of the puppies are now covered. That's a very different story because
what do they clean them before they show you? Like, do they have like
you'd be surprised. Some of them will, but it's also when you have like a Yorkie or another long-haired dog, it's not that easy to get that stuff out of the long hair. And to dry the dog off well before you get there, also not that easy. So like, you have Great Dane puppies or something, you can pretty much wipe them down, no problem, because they have short hair like that. A long-haired dog, it's not quite so easy. And when you have 30 puppies you're trying to get rid of because you had, 3 different dogs have litters all around the same time, which is not what most responsible breeders will do. There are some responsible breeders who have like big areas, a large staff, lots of people looking after the dogs that can have, multiple litters and take care of stuff like that. Fewer and further between.
So in my case, it was, that's all I have to compare with. With the boxer, it felt like, you're paying the money, you're buying the dog, right? But when I found the dog online and saw the picture that I wanted, whatever, she showed me the pictures from the litter. And then I went there. This was a 5-hour drive out West Pennsylvania. And we drove there. I found the dog. I love the dog. I want the dog. And she's like, whoa, hold up. Have you ever had a dog? I'm like, yes. And she starts interviewing me, and I'm like, whoa, who's paying the money over here?
A good breeder will do that.
But here's the thing. When I
that's
left,
the thing.
she didn't give me the dog because the dogs were a month old. She's like, no, you could put down deposit. And then when he's 3 months old, I will come and you can come and pick him up.
And those are more signs of a good breeder.
So as I'm driving home, leaving her the deposit, at first I was kind of like angry about it. I'm like, yo, what the hell? I thought I was going to get a dog today. And now she's asking me all these questions like, who's paying the money, And it's a 5-hour drive. So that anger came down and I'm like, you know what? That's actually a really good thing. That means she cares. That means, and they had a little barn and the barn had different sections of like what you were saying, a little raised, right? And they were big and the other dogs are running around. And it's like, I kind of felt like, you know what? This is good. This is not like a puppy mill type of situation. So
no, it sounds like that person was doing exactly the right thing because most of the good breeders out there don't let their dogs just go to anyone because they put their heart, soul, love into these puppies. They want to make sure these puppies go to good homes and they're going to have good lives.
I was completely surprised because my first dog was a rescue from a shelter. So nobody asked questions there. It's like, you want that one? Take him. You know what I mean? But this one, she gave me so many questions. I was like, whoa, like who's paying the money? What's going on?
What's the process with rescue dogs? I mean, there's a lot of incentive and people say it's a good thing to go to a shelter, adopt.
So there's a lot of incentive. One, you can get a dog that is already knows some stuff, somewhat well behaved. Again, very much depends on the dog you get. You have to go pick out the dog yourself. But one, whenever you get a puppy, you're gonna have to housebreak the puppy. Puppy's not gonna know not to go to inside right away. You go to the shelter, you can get a dog, 2, 3, 4 years old or something. They might already know some obedience. They might be super loyal already. They might be a great dog that someone passed away, someone lost their home. You don't know what happened that dog wound up in that situation. I know so many good dogs that wound up in shelters and it was because the wrong person had them. People, like a big thing that happened recently, there was a couple movies that came out that were like army movies and stuff like that where people had Belgian Malinois and they were a very popular dog. And then all of a sudden, people got them for house pets, and they are not house pets. They are dogs that are meant to work. So when you don't give them a job to do, they're going to find their own job to do. It's probably not going to be one that you like because it's going to be like herding your children around the house, which includes biting them when they go somewhere the dog doesn't like. So a lot of times with the shelter dogs, you can get this amazing dog that was in the wrong situation and is a great dog for what you want. Plus, you can get one that's a little bit older. You don't have to deal with a lot of the puppy stuff because also puppies teething, nipping. And again, it's not that the dog's doing anything wrong in that situation. That's all the normal puppy stuff. But you can get past a lot of those things getting a shelter dog. Plus, when you buy a dog from a breeders, it can range, but you're looking at a good chunk of change at least. Shelter, depending on when you go, you could have a sale for $50. They're doing a special, and you can go get a dog and leave that day with one. And the dog's already spayed,
this was free.
or
This was
neutered,
just,
that's my point.
No, it was just like donate something if you can.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's my point.
I mean, they also have puppies too, right? If you want.
Oh yeah,
puppies,
if you get at the right shelter and like
that's what happened to me. I got a puppy, but they always have a different there's a turnaround.
I was going to say, with the shelter, it's always going to be different dogs there. And what's nice with a shelter is, like I was saying before, a lot of people, especially if you're like a new dog owner, you've never really had dogs before, you don't want a dog that's going to be super nervous and is going to be really hard to deal with and you're not going to know what to do. But for someone who's had dogs their whole life and is experienced, some people want to go in and find that dog that is abused and beat down and the one that is sitting in the corner and scared to come to anyone because they want to put in that time and give that dog a second chance.
So we talked about how to choose a puppy. What would you suggest when someone is looking out for a trainer?
So looking for a trainer, you guys want to make sure you're on the same page. You want to make sure. So with a trainer, you want to make sure you understand exactly what you're getting at the end of training. You want to understand how they will be training the dog. Not in this extent that finer details, like I don't need to like watch the person do it day by day, but at the same time, Are you only positive reinforcement? Are you correcting the dog only? Are you balance training, which is what I do? There's different ways of going about it. So you want to be on the same page with the trainer.
Yeah.
You want to know that you have the same end goals in mind, and that you want to have it be someone that you're going to get along with. You can't have it be someone that you meet and you go, this person's just rubbing me the wrong way.
Personality match.
Correct,
Are there also,
because you're going to have to learn from this person, because it's not just the dog learning from them on what to do. It's going to be you learning from them what to do.
right? But are there any kind of like red flags that is immediate? Like if you see somebody doing that, that's not your trainer.
If they're shaking cans of coins and throwing things at the dog, yeah, you're already on the wrong page.
You know where I'm leading you to is the fact that I think what I had is a bad experience, and I didn't like that. That was my second dog. That was my boxer. I felt I wanted to be responsible. The breeder gave me a whole thing about, do I know what I'm doing? So I'm like, I'm going to know what I'm doing. I'm going to take this dog. I went for a free lesson. And the guy put a spiked collar on him. And he's like, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to show you how to teach him how to heel. So he walks a straight line. He goes and jerks that collar. I think I saw my dog's eyes pop out. And he's like, heel. I'm like, heel? I'm scared, pissing my pants here. I'm going to heel right now. Are you kidding me? I'm like, you take that thing off. Give me my dog. Get out of here. You know what I mean?
So how he did things is wrong. And that's exactly what I mean by some trainers and some people have the right idea, but they go about it the wrong way.
Let me just add, when he did the heel part, that was the part you turned.
Correct.
Meaning he was walking a straight line and then he goes jerk and turns to the different direction. I'm like, no, man. you know?
Several things to that. One, with me, I absolutely use, it's called a training collar, prong collar, pinch collar, whatever you want to call it. I absolutely use them. But like I was saying before, every dog is an individual. So that is a correction collar. That's giving the dog a correction. For me, whenever I start with a dog, I don't start with that collar unless I know the dog has already been on that collar with the owner and is familiar with that collar and like is used to it already. I'm going to start with either a martingale or like a slip collar or something like that, which is a softer collar. So like a martingale is basically like the regular flat collar most dogs wear around, but it tightens a little bit, but it only tightens so much. So it's not like a choke collar, which gets tighter and tighter and tighter. It allows you to give a snap and give a little bit of a correction, but it's very soft on the dog. So the first week of training for me, I'm always teaching the dog. The dog doesn't know what I want yet. So think of it this way. If you go to class and the teacher's like, all right, guys, here's what we're learning today. Here it is. And then you raise your hand to ask a question. The teacher just whacks you over the head with a ruler. And you're like, what just happened? You don't know the answer yet? No, I'm trying to learn still. That's what that trainer did right there.
Yeah.
He took a dog that didn't know what to do.
3 or 4 months old.
A super aggressive correction when the dog had no clue what was going on yet. So there's times to give a correction like that, but it's absolutely not to a puppy, and not to a puppy that has
I think
no
he
clue
remembered
what's going on around him.
And that's why he came up to my room and pissed on my couch later. All right. But that was like months later. He was like, you know what, man? I'm going to get you back for this.
The way training works with me is like with the martingale collar, I'm going to teach the dog what to do first. Once the dog understands the commands and understands what I'm asking out of them, then we start to escalate things a little bit. I will use like a corrective collar, like the training collar like he was using, but I always want to give the softest correction possible where the dog's going to respond. So on like a boxer puppy, I'm not going to... So that right turn is a way to teach the dog to stay by your side. So again, he has the right idea,
right?
But wrong application.
I mean, he lost me, man. I never came back. I was like, I didn't even stay for the full lesson. I'm like, I'm out.
I don't blame you. Because that's where, again, like I said, if you go to class to learn something and you're getting whacked over the head when you're trying to learn, it's not a conducive learning environment. Now, on the other hand, if you've been going to class for a while, you've been working on this thing, you know what to do, and then all of a sudden the teacher catches you slacking off and you're trying to screw around and you're on your phone in class,
get that collar
then she whacks you with the ruler. Now we're talking a different story here. So that's where the collar comes into play.
So in a proper way, there's use for it.
Oh, absolutely. But again, you have to do it correctly. You can't just be whacking the dog over the head when they don't understand what's going on. But that's what I was saying with the commands and making the commands ironclad and making them where the dog understands exactly what I want from them, because when I tell the dog sit, they know what to do. Then when the dog does anything but sit, I can tell the dog no and give them the correction. And they look at me like, huh? And I go, sit. And they go, ah, I know why that happened. I was supposed to be sitting. I wasn't sitting. Then I got in trouble. So then it becomes very clear to the dog what we do want and what we don't want. So then instead of their confidence going down, because like that's a lot of people think, oh, you're being mean to the dog, you're correcting them, you're telling them they're doing a bad job. But no, I'm actually showing them how to do a good job. So it actually builds their confidence more, because instead of getting in trouble for jumping on that person and not understanding exactly why they got in trouble, I make them sit in that situation. Then they get what they want. The person saying hi to them. So then they go, oh, wait, so when I sit, that's when I get the reward I want. And then the next time they go to that situation, instead of just jumping on that person, you see the thought process go where they go, wait a second, if I sit, then I get the pet? And I'm kind of expediting that process when I say the next time. You have to repeat that quite a few times to get to that result. But that's the whole end process. It's a conditioning process.
Maybe I took him too early. Well, first of all, I'm good with the trainer. That was not a good trainer. I'm sorry. But also maybe I took him too soon. When is a good time to?
No, 3 months is a great time to get started. Actually,
Just
3
not with
months
that guy.
it's not with that guy. 3 months is a great time to get started, because the dog is a sponge at that point. They will absorb whatever you're throwing at them. And at 12 weeks, they usually haven't really picked up any bad habits yet that we have to fix either.
Right.
So like going back to that 13-year-old Yorkie, he had quite a lot of bad habits we had to undo. So it took him a while longer to pick everything up, because with us, it's not just, oh, when I tell the dog sit, they have to sit. It's sit and ignore all of the distractions around you. So even if your friend's coming in the door and you want to go say hi, you got to sit here till I give you permission.
So you could deprogram and then reprogram, even if
Correct.
it's an older dog.
Oh, correct. It just, like I said, it just takes a little longer. That's all.
So the question about the breeders are getting a puppy from the breed. Apparently, they make you sign something that you can't breed them, or you have to. You have to neuter or spade the dog. Right.
When I came across it, you have to register your puppy with the AKC, and if you're coming from that breeder, I think they give you some kind of a reference or whatever. And if you're coming from that, it automatically says it has to be, I think, spayed or neutered.
Not all of them say that. What it is, a lot of the breeders don't want someone buying their dog and then trying to use their bloodline, so to speak. And then, because I know some people will get a dog from a really good bloodline and be like, oh, my dog's from this bloodline. Don't you want part of that? But meanwhile, they have no idea what they're doing with breeding. And now someone can be putting a sour name on someone else's good reputation, so to speak. So how enforceable it is a completely different topic.
Yeah.
But that's why a lot of the breeders do it, to try to prevent anyone from messing with their product, so to speak, because there's years ago, there was a line of golden retrievers that was super popular. It became really prevalent all throughout the US, but tons of vets were actually trying to get the breeder to stop because the dogs had a really high cancer rate.
Wow.
So a lot of the times when breeders are doing it for the wrong reason, other breeders will try to, no, this is my bloodline. I don't want you using it. You're not going to do it the way I want it done, so to speak. And sometimes it's some people doing it wrong because they're inexperienced. Sometimes it's just difference of opinion where, I like A and you like B. So it's not always about someone being wrong or right. Sometimes it is just, different styles of how they like to do things, how they breed, all that kind of stuff.
Unless they're like doodles, right? You can get any kind of doodle, any kind of doodle you want.
Yeah, doodle is that's a totally different ballgame. That's any doodle you want.
What are the most common misconceptions about dog training?
At least in my opinion, the most common misconception is people think they're going to get their dog trained and then they can just tell the dog to do whatever they want and the dog's just going to listen to them no matter what. I can do this completely wrong however I want and the dog's just going to listen to that now. That is not at all how it works. Dog training is all a conditioning process. It's all getting the dog to respond certain ways when you respond a certain way. When I do this, you're going to do that. So training the dog and conditioning the dog to that. And then the owner coming along and going, well, sit, 30 times in a row. The dog looks at them and goes, oh, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. And then is going to just do what they want.
You get people coming back to you and being like, what happened?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I paid you all this money
for
the dog to sit. I come home, the dog is not sitting.
And that's why I do the two parts of the training. First, we train the dogs, and then we train the owners on the back end. Because I've had things where, like, I'll do lessons with the owner, and they're like, no, we're good. We got this under control, because it's the middle of the winter, and when they're going to the park, there's no one there. And then all of a sudden, 3 months goes by, and the spring comes around. Now the park's a little more crowded, and all of a sudden I'm getting a phone call going, actually, I think we need a little more help. We weren't doing quite as good as we thought we were. So then, go back, help them out, take care of whatever needs to get done.
Can you train a dog to be well socialized, but at the same time protective?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How does that, like, for example, you train a dog to be protective for so it could protect you when needed.
Yep.
Then you have a party with 50 people in your backyard and your dog's running around, and drunk Uncle Johnny over there, you know what I mean, tips over or whatever, smacks you by accident, and there, the jaws are flying at you or whatever.
So there's several parts of it. Depending on exactly how you want the dog trained, depends on how you want the dog reacting to certain things. So different people have different levels of protection they want. Some people want it where the dog won't let anyone in the house other than them. Other people want it so my German Shepherd, for example, he wouldn't let a stranger in the house if I wasn't home. But if I'm home, anyone can walk through the front door, and as long as I act okay with it, he's completely fine.
So you train him that way?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
So he looks at your body language, your
correct
smells or whatever.
And then,
right?
You can have the dog trained where they're super friendly and outgoing unless you tell them there's an issue. So,
like a set of command.
Correct. So you can have it where the dog is more responsive, where when they see Uncle Johnny doing that, they're going to go to get a little feisty, but then you're also going to have a command that when you say stop, the dog's immediately going to hit the brakes, come to a stop, lay down, chill out, and, the switch gets turned off, so to speak.
Like a subliminal type of MK Ultra thing.
Correct. But that's actually where I won't do protection with just any dog and not with just any client. Tons of people that do want protection nowadays want it for the wrong reasons. And I don't really want to get involved with that crowd. But then even with people who do want it for the right reasons, I've had tons of clients that are having like break-ins in the neighborhood. They want, a protection dog, but they don't realize what goes into that.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like me handing someone a gun and then not giving them a shooting lesson to go with it and go, all right, guys, here's your firearm. Good luck. So with the dog, if it's someone who can't control the dog and doesn't have the ability to control that dog in lower situations where, if someone's knocking at the front door and they can't even get the dog to stop barking, I'm not training that dog in protection for them so that when the dog starts going nuts at the front door, they can't even get the dog to stop.
So besides training the dog, you actually, with the experience that you have in the many years that you've been doing it, you can spot that person as well, right? That person that comes in and you could teach that dog to be overprotective or whatever it is, but you could see that person cannot handle that.
A lot of the times I can see it right off the bat, and I know this is not going to be a person I'm willing to do protection with. But even if it's someone that I will do protection with, I make them do obedience first, and I want to see that they're actually going to follow through with the instructions, because some people can act like they're so serious and they're so focused and they're going to do this and they're going to put in all the hard work. And then when it actually comes time for the heavy lifting, I'm busy. I got this going on. I got that.
I'm sure that there are people that are like, here, I'm paying you for this. Just take care of it.
And correct. So that's where I want someone that I see is going to actually follow through on the instructions, because I don't want to make this dog dangerous and then give it to someone who's not going to follow through and make sure the dog is controlled.
Is there any kind of certification that dog trainers need to go to? Some kind of like ethics standards or whatever, compliance?
So funny enough, there is no universal standard in our country. So there are tons of different standards you can go to. many of which are online classes. You can take a course, you can, pass an online test, and now you have this certification without ever touching a dog.
Right.
There's a bunch of different certifications you can have. Some of them are much more valid than others for sure, but there is no universal certification, no requirement, no, hey, to become a dog trainer, you have to have this. You can literally, go watch The Dog Whisperer, like you were saying before, watch 5 episodes and go, this is easy, and go out and call yourself a dog trainer.
They got apps now.
Oh,
for
that's
dog training,
my
right?
point. And I won't say where, but I've seen like dog training facilities that their head trainer will give the new employees a 30-minute DVD and send them home with it. And the next day they come in and they're now a dog trainer. So there's a very wide range of quality when it comes to dog training.
There should be like unless you've gotten bit, you have no right to train a dog unless you know what it feels like.
So,
I'm kidding.
The best
honestly.
way is to choose a dog trainer is word of mouth, right? Or
Word of mouth is good. Doing some research, like let's say, you don't have any friends that have dogs or anything. You don't know anyone that really has dogs, which, I don't know how you could really come across that nowadays, honestly. But at the same time, doing research online, reading reviews, meeting the person, asking about, this is what I want out of the training. These are the expectations I have. Are these goals you're going to be able to meet? And then, do they stand by their work? Is it something where, are they going to charge you per session every time you need more help? I'm going to charge you for that help. Or are they standing behind their work because they know what they're doing is going to work well? So some people will sell it as a package, the training with this much training, this many lessons, so forth, comes with this. Other people, no, every time you want my time, it's, this amount of dollars. So it's not that some of those trainers aren't bad by any means, but you're never, I shouldn't say never, I take that back, but very few situations with dog training are going to be able to be resolved with the trainer stopping by one time and just giving the people some advice. There are situations where they have a softer dog and people just don't know any better and they really do need just a little bit of guidance and they can do it themselves. But I find the people that are that close to the solution already are the ones who will also just go online and look and watch a couple YouTube videos and be able to get almost as far as they did with that one lesson with the YouTube videos versus the people who really need the help, need someone who's going to be a little bit more hands-on.
how long, on average, is the training session? Like, how many is it? A month? Is it?
The way I do it, it's usually 4 days a week. The training sessions are between like 45 minutes and an hour. For an off-leash training, it's usually about 6 weeks, but it doesn't actually go off the time span. It goes off the results. So I've had dogs that finish in 5 weeks. I have dogs that have taken like 8, 9, 10 weeks because they're stubborn, they're difficult, they have a lot of anxiety, an aggressive dog, all different kind of examples. So again, like I said, it's very much an individual basis, but on average, usually around about 6 weeks.
How do you establish the alpha, like yourself as an alpha in your dog pack?
Through the obedience, you gain control. So the first thing when I take out a new dog, I have a collar on him. We just kind of go for a walk. I'll make him sit a couple times, nothing too crazy. I don't let them drag me on the leash. I don't let them pull me wherever they want to go. I set boundaries right off the bat. So then as we spend more time together, those boundaries get stiffer and stiffer, and I allow less and less misbehavior from the dog as the dog becomes more and more aware of what I do expect from them. So as the dog becomes understanding of what I want from them, I expect higher and higher results and goals. So the first day, I'm going to just have the dog sitting, maybe lay down, maybe try to do a stay a little bit. But as I escalate that, now I'm bringing the dog in much more difficult situations. So that's a dog, the happy puppy that loves jumping on the new people it meets. Well, when I'm with mom and dad, I always jump on everybody I meet. But, this guy, he makes me sit all of the time. So now when I go up to someone and I try to jump and then he tugs the leash the way he always does and says, sit. Oh, right, I got to sit. So now I start to take that control. I get the respect. And now I'm the boss. And the dog understands that, oh, I have to listen to them in all different kinds of situations.
I also heard things like that as a pack leader or whatever, you have to be the one that eats first and the dog has to wait. Is there any truth to that? Like
No.
I heard some weird stuff that you got to do.
So there's lots of weird things like that some of them have the right idea and the right concept behind it.
Oh, because the
but
pack leader eats
execution
first,
is
like
poor.
within wolves or whatever, right?
Correct. So what it is, it's a respect thing. The dog has to respect you. So like, for example, another one that's like big with that is, oh, you can't let the dog in your bed. The dog will never respect you if you let them in your bed.
Yeah.
That's absolutely not true.
I just don't like that, but okay.
Yeah, no, that's that's a different story. Some people don't like that.
Yeah.
But that's where, for me, some people have the issue where, well, when I let the dog get in the bed, then the dog starts growling. The dog doesn't want to let me get in the bed. That's not
That's
an
a
acceptable
problem.
behavior.
Right.
But if you have control where the dog gets in the bed and you go off, and the dog looks, he goes, oh, my bad, and then just gets down, where's the issue? How is that becoming a problem now?
Right.
So when you have control and you have respect from the dog, because another one like that's big with that, oh, you can't let the dog walk in front of you. That means
Yeah.
they're in charge. Not at all true. Now, I have my dogs, I let them walk in front of me plenty of the time.
I think that came from a cartoon. It's like they're walking us, we're not walking them or something like that.
So what it is, when you heel the dog should be right next to you on the heel. Controlled walk, loose leash, follows your left leg wherever you go. So with the heel, the dog should not be in front of you. So that's where a lot of people see like, oh, well, when the dog's working, they should be right next to you. So the dog should be working whenever you're on a walk, right? But the walk is also the free time for the dog. That's when they get to explore, they get to sniff, they get their, fun time, so to speak. So if you're working, it's kind of hard to have your fun time, isn't it? So to give the dog their enjoyment, they're allowed casual time on the leash. They don't have to be on a command 24/7. But at the same time, when they're on that casual time on the leash, there's still rules, there's still boundaries. Look, you can walk in front of me, but you're not dragging me. That leash isn't going to be tight. I don't want you barking at people when they walk by. You're not going to be, trying to eat garbage off the ground or anything like that. You're still got to behave yourself. But again, I don't need you in a perfect heel right next to me. But then let's say another dog's trying to come close to us. I want, oh no, now I need you like on your best behavior. I tell them heel, they get right next to me. I can walk past whatever kind of distraction while they mind their business. And now everything's cool.
Is there an effective way or some kind of a trick to get a dog to stop pulling? I mentioned a lot about my boxer because he was the best, honestly. But you know what? That one thing, he was always like he would come outside and you're like, I knew I pulled him back, I yanked him back, but it was always like that.
Yep. So a big part of it, a mistake people do, they pull the dog back, but you actually want to snap more. When you hold the leash tight, the dog's natural instinct is to pull back. So then it just becomes tug of war with the leash.
Like it's dragging you.
Correct. So while that trainer you were talking about
Yeah.
did it in the completely wrong manner, making a right turn and changing the dog's direction is actually one of the techniques we do use to help teach the dog how to heel. But again,
And you're establishing control, so right?
Correct.
Because, okay.
but that's where your dog didn't understand the collar, didn't know what healing is, didn't understand what a correction is. So that's like, hey, you're going to be in class, you're going to be around a bunch of new people, we're going to throw everything at you all at once. Hope it goes well.
That guy's lucky I don't know his name. I would have blasted him. Don't go there.
But that's where you want to, it's a step-by-step process. First, you want to teach the dog. So like with a new dog, when I start walking them, they're going to go to pull. I'm going to change my direction. They're going to go to pull the other way. I'm going to change and we're just going to keep doing that for a little while till they're not pulling as much. They're going
Until
at a
the dog
slower rate.
understands
Correct.
that you are in charge.
Correct.
Basically, everything here is to show that you are in charge.
Correct.
Establishing the alpha.
Correct. So that's where even
This
there,
is like free advice, bro. Okay, when you get a dog.
so even there, I'll give a little tug on the leash, but I'm not giving a super aggressive correction or anything because the dog doesn't know any better yet. But now, fast forward to 4 weeks later, when that dog is very well aware what heel means, and now we're out in public and I'm at a store and it sees another dog and it's super friendly and it wants to go play, so it lunges towards that dog. And when I say lunges, I don't mean trying to be aggressive or mean, but it goes like, there's my buddy, and it goes to fly over. Now I am going to make that right turn and give a more aggressive correction. Be like, hey, you know you're not supposed to do that. And the dog's like, oh man, I'm in big trouble now, huh? But it's almost the same concept of if you went to school and you didn't do your homework one day and the teacher called your mom was like, go to your room for a little bit. You didn't do your homework. Then you went to the school the next day, you started a riot, started a fire, threw a brick through the window, and then you came home. Mom was like, oh, that 20 minutes
Here's
in your room
that spike
yesterday.
collar I was talking about.
Do that again. Yeah. But if the correction is the same for something extremely minor versus something extremely major, in the dog's eyes, why should I listen to this?
I mean,
for the little
genuinely,
things
I've seen my dog look at me like, dude, like, like I've read it in his eyes. Like sometimes you do some dumb stuff and he's like, what
the heck? Yeah, why, what are you doing that for?
Tips on most effective way to housebreaking.
Schedule.
So as many times you got to take him out, or
not just taking him out, it's getting the dog on a correct schedule. So what I mean by that is the dog's going to have certain times of the day when they're going to want to go to the bathroom much more frequently than others. So first thing in the morning when the dog gets up, the dog's going to have to go to the bathroom. After meals. So you're going to have some accidents at first, but then you're going to kind of make a diary, basically. Write down when the dog's going to the bathroom, and you're going to start to notice patterns. And you're going to go, oh, I notice he pees once before breakfast, but then after breakfast, that's when he goes number 1 and number 2. So then you start to get him on a routine. Then all of a sudden, oh, I've only been outside with him for 10 minutes, but he already peed, but he hasn't pooped and it's after breakfast. I know he's got to poop. We're going to stay out here till he goes. So now we can know the dog's routine, get them on a correct schedule. And if right around 5 o'clock, he always goes to the bathroom. I'm not waiting till 5:30 to see if he had an accident. I'm going to take him out right before 5, make sure he goes, and keep the track moving in the right direction. At first, I will walk the dog very frequently, like every hour to 2 hours. But as he's doing good with that, you start to stretch that. I say he, as the dog is doing good with that, he or she.
Yeah.
You stretch that time out more and more and more till it goes from 2 hours to 4 hours to 6 hours. And then, oh, look, I went to work today and I came home and the dog hung out. Not an issue. Now we go outside for their walk. They do their thing and everything's cool.
There are a lot of people, especially.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Are you ready for that?
I'm trying to learn, but so that's what the question is. So a lot of people who work or they have unpredictable schedules. I guess there's no advice really, right? They have to kind of be tending to the dog as much as they would be attending to the child, right?
In the beginning, you could do things like get a dog walker. A lot of people will have like help from whether, parents, spouse, family members, whoever. Having a little bit of a community when the dog is extremely young does help a lot when you're trying to get that housebreaking done, because if you have a hectic schedule and your schedule's constantly changing, it is very difficult for the dog to adjust to that. That also brings me to the point of, like I was saying earlier, with getting a little bit of an older rescue dog or something. Sometimes it really works out because
it learned how to hold it or whatever.
It already knows, not to go in the house. It's well housebroken. I have dogs that they'll hold it 12 hours, no problem.
Is that bad for the dog health-wise? Probably is, right?
I mean, I'm trying to make a habit out of it where it's, every single day or anything. But it's,
that's
the
true.
Holding in
Dogs,
general.
That's true. Listen, there have been plenty of times when I lived with my parents are at work. I went to college. After college, I went out or whatever. Probably not the most responsible things to do, you know what I mean? Knowing that you have a dog at home. But there were times when we would leave in the morning at like 8 in the morning and come back at like 10 p.m. And we knew, no, dude. Like we knew if there's an accident in the house, completely our fault. You know what I mean? We weren't even going to say anything. But there wasn't an accident. And the dog would walk out to the yard and he would just stand there for like 20 minutes or whatever. Yeah. He would just stand there for like a long time.
And now I'm not.
I mean, it wasn't always
that.
But yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because that 12 hours is too much.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of dogs that, oh crap, I got stuck at work extra late today. They're sitting by the door waiting for you to get home. And then as soon as you let them out, like Mark said, they're taking a long time when they get out there. But no, lots of dogs will hold it and they don't have a problem. And that's where dogs are very much like people in the sense that they have different personalities, where I have some dogs that I train that are super active. They want to run. They want to play. I have dogs that are total couch potatoes that you want me to go for like a bike ride now? Can't we just go sit on the couch? So if you find the dog that matches your lifestyle and what you want out of them, you could have like the best companion you could possibly ask for.
So on that, what are the most challenging, in your experience, dogs that you came across that are like the most challenging breeds?
I've had some really difficult, like I've had a couple cane corsos that were really rough. Definitely not like a entry level dog by any means. I've worked with a Tibetan Mastiff, which was
huge, right?
yeah. That's
Cane Corso is.
Cane Corso's another. It's an Italian Mastiff, so it's another like large
Big
breed
dog.
dog.
That's what
yeah.
Yuri has.
There's like different livestock guardian breeds, which are not super common here. You don't see them a lot. Like a
Like
Great
that
Pyrenees.
wolf dog or whatever. Not wolf. It's like a Russian.
Yes, an Ovcharka.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Isn't that a German Shepherd?
Big. No. There's like a big
No,
dog.
it's a Caucasian Shepherd.
Caucasian
Ovcharka.
Shepherd, yeah.
I've trained one of them as well. That's right up there on that list. It's same thing as like the Tibetan Mastiff.
It's the character. Like the dog is just.
Yeah, those are
challenges you,
very
right?
difficult dogs. They are used to. They're a dog that was bred to guard livestock, so they're used to fighting wolves and other animals to the death.
And then they see you and they're like,
And they are very used to like, well, I have one owner, I respect them. Maybe, you know, it's one family, I respect the family. And then people beyond that, a little bit questionable. So I've worked with all sorts of different livestock guardian breeds that they all tend to be
did you ever worry? Like, you know,
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
oh,
Like,
I've gotten tagged a bunch of times. I've gotten
No, but I mean, like, actually, maybe feared a bit, but you're like, I can't show the fear. So, like,
oh no, I've had dogs literally like trying to kill me before. So I've gotten tagged a couple bad times. So this one, the dog wasn't trying to kill me, but it was probably one of the worst bites I got. Selling a police dog, like I said, I was showing this one dog that is what we call both handler aggressive and resource guards, which means that if the dog has something in their mouth and you try to make them let it go, similar to the one the lady cop had to let go and give to her boss, the dog will get into a fight with you about it. So we're trying to sell this dog to the police. So a room full of dog trainers and police. Meanwhile, we already tested the dog. We know the dog is handler aggressive. And if I try to get something from the dog, he's going to try to bite me. So I make the dog spit out a towel. It's like a rolled up towel for, you know, training purposes. And I kick it to one of the other trainers. And I'm like, all right, throw it over to me. My boss looks at me and goes, no, just pick it up. And I look at it and I go, no, because I know very well what's going to happen next.
so you're trying to get the other guy to pick it up?
Because he's over there
Oh, I
and he's
see.
going to pick it up and he's going
I
to
thought it
throw
was
it
like
to
a
me.
rookie.
So
yeah.
no.
Just eat him.
No, so this way he can pick it up at a distance and he can
that's
throw
how
it
they
to
break
me.
in the rookies. Yeah,
exactly. Hey, pick it up.
So my old boss would absolutely try to do things like that and like haze the rookies, so to speak. So a room full of dog trainers and cops. My boss is like, no, pick it up. And I'm like, no. We get into a little discussion about it and argue. He's like, no, just pick it up. Nothing's going to happen. Like, I don't know why you're just pick it up. And I go, okay, here we go. I bend down to pick up the towel. And 85-pound German Shepherd now full grips onto my bicep. I stand up. The dog is dangling off the ground between my bicep and the leash I have in my other hand. One of the trainers...
And you don't have the Michelin.
No, I
thing,
do not
right?
have the sleeve
That
on
was
right
just
now.
like-
This is just on my arm. My one friend who's one of the other trainers there with me goes to help me. My boss says, no, Josh has it. Don't worry. He's got it under control. Thanks. I managed to get the dog off my arm. I have fat and muscle hanging out of my arm because I had a pretty good puncture and chunk taken out of me. And the cops go, whoa, yeah, that one, we don't want that one. My boss goes, okay, go put that one back, grab the next one.
Wow, you're
I
bleeding.
am bleeding profusely everywhere.
And most
no
people
concerns.
would be like, that's it. I'm done with this.
Oh, I went and got the next dog and just continued on. I also worked with, it was a Malamute, which is, think of like a husky, but much
Thicker, bigger.
yeah, they're not that much taller usually. They're a little bit taller than huskies, but not giant in comparison. But they're
beautiful.
much heavier. It's It's a much stockier
They're
dog.
for the snow sleds, right? And
Correct.
stuff like that,
Yep.
right?
I had one of them that was about 110-ish, 100 pounds. He was the type that when he would go to bite you, he wasn't looking for like arm or leg. He's like, I'm going to hurt you, and would go for like face, neck, fun things like that. He tagged me one time where he luckily missed. He got me in the chest. I almost didn't have a nipple.
I mean, I'm glad you could laugh about it now, but it sounds scary,
At the time I was a little upset, but funny enough, I got it tattooed over, but I had you could see literal upper and bottom tooth marks. Scar.
I can from your
him.
stories, I could definitely say you're dedicated.
I don't think you'd be able to get it on the camera from here, but I have a little notch missing out of my nose on one nostril. It was split almost all the way up. I got bit in the face by a Wheaton one time. I actually super glued it back together myself. That was a fun one.
Do you see a difference between a purebred and a mutt? And before you answer, let me just get into why I'm asking. There's certainly a lot of things I heard, and I've noticed having both. I had a purebred and I had a mutt. Typically, they say mutts are smarter. In my experience, that was the case in the beginning, at least. I mean, also I felt like the mutt was more territorial. Like my boxer, while he was eating, or maybe just because he was who he was, but I could literally stick my hand down his throat and take it out, or tell him stop, and he would walk off. The mixed breed that I had that was a rescue, it wasn't anything. Nobody took anything away from him ever. But if I would walk up to his plate while he's eating, he'd start growling.
A pure breed, you're usually going to have something more predictable, in the sense that breeds have breed standards for a reason. They tend to be true in a lot of cases. So like, I'll just use golden retriever, for example. 99% of the time when you get a golden retriever, it's going to be relatively outgoing dog. It's going to be friendly. It's going to be pretty happy. It's not going to have a lot of anxiety or anything. It's not usually going to be a bunch of aggression issues or anything.
You don't
like
hear
that.
typically of them being like
Correct.
An accident of a golden retriever.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So
True.
that's where, depending on the breed, you have very different breed standards. So like I'll use, the Tibetan Mastiff, for example. You can get one that is a great dog. It's not that it's impossible, but they've been bred to guard monasteries up in the mountains and fight large animals and intruders. So the chances of getting one that's going to be very outgoing and friendly and super happy is going to be much lower than when you're looking at, your golden retriever. When you have mixed breeds, depending on what you mix together, depends on what you're going to wind up with. So if you take two breeds that both have lots of anxiety, you can get a dog that has way more anxiety and is worse. But you can also get a dog that has less anxiety because it got some of the other traits from the dogs. So with mutts, it's a lot more hit and miss on the temperament side of things, because I've met dogs that look 90% this breed, but they have the temperament of the 5% of something else that's in there for whatever reason. And then I've met dogs that act exactly like the dog they look like. It's half pit bull and half, like Australian cattle dog, which is like a herding breed. They're a very tough breed. They're very pig-headed. And that dog acts exactly like that. The purebreds, like I said, you're usually going to be more, okay, this is the personality I can kind of expect out of this dog. Again, that's not at all going to be like 100% guaranteed by any means. There's always going to be variation of temperament within the breed. But with that, it's much more common to kind of know what you're getting versus the mutts. Now, on the health side of things, it's almost the opposite. With the purebreds, because they've been looking for certain traits, looking for certain qualities
for them.
There's a little bit of inbreeding going along somewhere down the line there. So the dogs will wind up with some kind of health issue where for certain breeds, it's hips, others, it's skin, Then you go into a dog like, bulldogs or especially French bulldogs, which it's actually the most popular dog in America right now, but they're also called the vet's breed because Frenchies a lot of the time have to have a C-section to give birth because the heads are extremely wide and the hips are not. It's not something that always has to happen, but it is very common. They very commonly have to have nasal surgery because they have, the flat faces, they're bronchiocephalic. So that surgery alone is, a big deal. For the dog to breathe properly, they need a surgery. Then, skin issues, stomach issues, all sorts of hip, spine issues. So that's a dog who's been bred to be very unhealthy now because people think the flat face is so cute. Oh, I love it. They make that snorty noise. It's so adorable.
And then they fart. They don't know about that. They don't sell
correct.
that.
But no, that's another thing. Frenchies, because of the way they were
because
bred,
of the muzzle.
no, the farting isn't because of the muzzle. The farting is just because of they have stomach problems a lot of the times.
Really?
So they're very gassy. So my company, we're working with 2 French bulldogs right now that are 2 sisters. The one of them was having bloody diarrhea almost every single day for closing in on a month now. And the other one completely fine. They changed the food, switched to a prescription food to try to fix the one. It mostly stopped the diarrhea, not 100% all the way. And now the other Frenchie is throwing up all the time because the food's not agreeing with her. So again, the vet's breed for a reason because there's always a problem. There's always another trip to the vet. So,
I mean,
it depends what the dog's being bred for. Because if you also you look at a Belgian Malinois, they're bred to work. They're not bred to be pretty. They're bred for their temperament. So you're going to get a lot less of those health issues. But even with them, you're going to find health issues and things that go through because they're looking for those very particular things.
So I actually have a question. So there are people looking to get dogs, also people looking to start young families. How does that relationship work? Should you have a child first and then bring in the dog? Or it's okay to have a dog and hopefully interact well with the child and accept the child into the pack? Or
so you can go about it either way. I personally kind of actually prefer to have the dog first, believe it or not. The reason being, you can get the dog accustomed to the environment, get them used to kind of how things go, and you can get control over the dog. A lot of the dogs, when the babies start first crying, they start losing their, what is that?
Yeah.
How do I help? What do I do? There's something wrong right now and I don't know how to fix it. So they have to, no, lay down, calm down. Look, the baby's okay. They're just upset right now. The dog has to understand that. But if you don't have control, I've seen dogs, some dogs have hurt the baby trying to help.
But wait,
the
it
baby's
sounds
crying.
it sounds actually that the owner should understand that.
Oh,
To
no,
expect
that's
the reaction.
correct.
Right?
So, absolutely. There's some dogs that hear the baby crying and they go in the other room. They want no part of it. They want nothing to do with it. Some of the dogs are extremely interested in the baby, but then all of a sudden the baby starts getting a little more handsy. They're pulling on the dog. They're doing things. And again, it's not that the baby's doing anything wrong, so to speak. It's a baby. They don't know any better.
Yeah.
But the dog goes, ow, that hurts. I don't really like that. So now, perfect example, I trained this one dog for a couple who was pregnant a couple of years ago. The baby just turned 2 now. And the dog and the baby have a very interesting relationship because the baby loves the dog, but the dog also loves the baby. But now that the baby's more mobile and moving and very handsy.
Oh crap,
with
this
the
thing
dog,
could walk.
the dog's kind of I liked you more when you stayed in place a little bit.
We all like them more when they stay in place.
So when the baby's in the high chair eating, the dog's all around because the baby's
throwing the
dropping food. The dog's having a great time.
Now we're good again.
When the baby's on the couch and the baby's being gentle, dog's all about it. Dog wants to snuggle. Baby starts getting active. Baby starts playing, grabbing, being a little more handsy and rougher on the dog. I'm going to go sit in the bedroom now. You guys can deal with the baby. I'm going to be sleeping on the bed. You guys come get me when he's done.
Yeah.
But how do you habituate, make sure that dog doesn't, let's say it used to get all the attention, has some kind of territory. Now there's a new being in the house, and how do you make sure that it doesn't attack the
So
child?
that's where having control.
Control,
So
right? Yeah.
most of the dogs are not going to be aggressive where they're just going to try to attack the baby. Um, Even with dogs, like you said, that are jealous, what will usually happen, it's more, um, you'll be on the couch with the baby, you have the baby in your arms. The dog is trying to wiggle their way into your arms, being like, look, I'm a baby too. Snuggle me. It's not that they'll be nasty about it most of the time. It's more them trying to get in the middle. You'll put the baby down in the stroller or like the little, like the rocker, whatever you call it. And the dog will try to go in between you and the rocker. Like, you can leave them alone. Why don't you pay attention to me now? Stuff like that. Not that there aren't dogs who absolutely will get aggressive and, do not like children and things like that. But those are generally dogs more with anxiety issues, things like that.
From the whole thing, what I'm getting here is like what stuck with me is that basically all of this is about you have to have control and you have to
Correct.
portray that control. And basically,
Yep.
I guess you have to be the alpha. Otherwise, it goes into everything.
It's constantly about giving the dog information of what you want. So, like, I'll give you a perfect example. If you're going to take the baby in the kitchen and get them, bottle ready and the formula and all that stuff, and you don't want the dog under your feet, I'm going to put the dog on the down stay. I'm going to tell the dog down, tell them stay right here. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to walk back to what I was doing. So let's say, you're in the living room on the couch with the dog. Dog wants to be by you. Dog's by your feet, baby's next to you. You got to go get the bottle. I tell the dog down, stay, get the bottle, come back. Good boy or girl, depending on the dog. Tell them they did a good job for what they did. And then they go, oh, so you're just going to go over there and get the bottle? I don't need to be on top of you 24/7. And then when the baby goes to sleep, then you do spend a little time with the dog. Look, you're not left out, buddy. You still got me. It's not all just the baby now. You still will get your time. That makes sense.
To prevent the
Yeah.
jealousy, yeah.
It's not even just to prevent the jealousy. It's if you constantly spend time with the dog and then all of a sudden you don't spend time with the dog, how's that really fair to them?
So true. I had that in my, but it's just the ones that I live with now. They're tiny little Yorkies. They didn't really
Right,
have much. You know what I mean? The little one actually did bite my son a couple of times when
Yep.
he was crawling. But the good thing, well, good or not, but whatever. Yorkies are known to have rotten teeth. We had to remove all his teeth so he didn't really hurt him. But he would go and nip on him. You know what I mean?
I'm not surprised because he's moving around. He's a little bit
Oh,
scary
he would also
now.
literally just grab
Grab
him,
him, yep.
And they're tiny. But it just sounds like everything is about control, reaffirmation, right?
Yep.
Making sure that
And like
you don't
even
leave
with the
them behind.
Yorkies, that's where different dogs want different things. So like, for example, my golden doodle is perfectly content sitting on the couch next to me and just me petting him and loving on him and, just hanging out. Where my German Shepherd, he loves when I pet him, but he wants me to take him in the yard and throw the ball and do things with him so he can actually, he wants to run. He wants to play. He wants that kind
It's
of
a job.
interaction. Yeah, that's exactly. So that's where different dogs want different things. So just because you're spending time with the dog doesn't necessarily mean you can't be doing other things too. So like, for example, with your Yorkies, you could sit on the couch with the baby on one side and the Yorkie on the other and be completely fine and not have any issues. But then you try to do that with your Belgian Malinois, for example, and it's not going to go so smoothly. That dog's going to be vibrating on the couch. So they basically go to a different dimension.
Do you, when you train, do you train with food or
Oh, yes,
how
definitely.
What do you prefer?
So it's the way we do it is balance training. So the dog has to have a correction when the dog does something wrong. So if I tell the dog sit, the dog doesn't sit, there's going to be a consequence there. They're going to get in trouble. I'm going to tug the leash, tell them no, tell them to sit again. But then once they do sit, now there's positive reinforcement. They're going to get food, they're going to get love, they're going to get affection, reward of some kind to show them, look, this is the thing I did want from you. So if you constantly are correcting the dog and not rewarding them, it's like going to work and not getting paid. You're not going to keep
Right,
doing it because
right.
what's the motivation here?
Right.
But if you're constantly, if you only reward for the good behavior and there's no correction for the bad behavior, so, you're constantly shoving food in the dog's face when they're doing good things, Oh, I see that steak on the counter. You're only giving me dog treats. That steak seems a lot better. Now they jump up on the counter, take the steak. Oh, well, you're not going to get a treat. That's okay. I just had a steak.
So you give treats.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What if the dog has diabetes? I'm kidding.
Oh, no. It's a very valid question.
That was a trick question.
No, I've trained dogs. So one, I have dogs that I have to feed them their food as treats because they're so allergen sensitive. I've trained diabetic dogs that need to be on like particular foods. I have dogs that have allergies that like usually the treats I use are like salmon based. I have dogs that are allergic to salmon. I have dogs that are allergic to chicken. I have
Is that
dogs
a real thing?
Oh yeah.
See, I just asked it purely as a joke, but
Just like people have food allergies, dogs have food allergies.
any myths you'd like to debunk about dog training?
Pretty much nothing in dog training gets solved in one day. It's always conditioning, repetition.
And what I actually liked what you said earlier was about, there are people that come and just throw the dog at you and be like, here's the money, here's the dog, figure it out. But it takes a lot more than that.
I'll give you a great example of that, actually. So one of my favorites is I'll constantly get a call like, oh, my dog's, stealing food off the counter or something. And I'm like, all right, I'll come over. We'll do a lesson. Let's see what's going on. I'm going to show you how to fix it. I go there. I'm like, all right, fry up an egg, get the cold cuts out, whatever you want to do. I get some food that's very dog safe. So if the dog eats it, no big deal. I get a paper plate, put it right on the paper plate, put it right on the edge of the counter there. Dog looks at them, looks at me, looks at the food, looks back at me and goes, nope. And dog won't do it. The people are looking at me like, I swear, he jumps on the counter all the time. I don't know. I go, yeah, but he respects me. So he's not going to do it when I'm here.
I'd be the lazy trainer. I'd be like, don't leave food on the counter. That's the first thing I thought when you started saying,
bill,
like,
right?
why are you leaving the food on the counter?
All right, here's my bill. See you later, guys.
Anytime. Call me anytime.
But no, that's where it's very respect based. So I can train the dog to be a robot for people, but no one wants a robot. Everyone wants a pet. They want a companion. So I show people how to make the dog fit their lifestyle. So I have clients like Steven, who works the dog fantastic. He works the dog beautifully. He puts a ton of effort into it because he wants a dog who's going to be perfect at the end of the day and is going to do all the things he tells her to do. Now I have other clients that go, oh, the dog's not jumping on people at the door anymore. The dog doesn't run away. They don't really listen perfect. Close enough. Now for me, I'm not happy with that result. I want the dog doing much better, but it's not my dog. I'm training the clients.
Right. Is that frustrating?
To be happy.
Like you put in a lot of work into a dog and then
yes
the owners don't follow through. And
it's frustrating when sometimes there's some things you can let the dog get away with and it's not going to be a big deal. And there's other things that you let the dog get away with and you're going to have consequences for it. So there's people that are lackadaisical with the dogs, but they have a dog who's a very easy dog and they're a soft dog. So they can get away with those things and the dog's not going to do anything bad. The dog's not biting anybody. The dog's not going to be, knocking grandma down the stairs or anything like that. So they get exactly what they want out of the training. So for those people, I'm completely happy. But then I have people that have very difficult dogs that are aggressive, dogs that have massive anxiety problems, dogs that are severe like abuse cases and stuff. And then what? You just can't just fix them? They can't just be better? They can't just that's
no, but I mean, like, does it frustrate you? Like that you would put in so much time, you treat a dog.
Those same people are the ones
do they come back? A bunch of times, like, hey, something happened. He was doing it for a year. Now he's not doing it anymore.
No, usually what happens is they'll either do a bunch of lessons and I can show them that, look, you're doing this wrong. And then either they'll do a bunch of lessons and eventually improve and actually get better and be able to solve the result or resolve the issue rather and get to the result. Or they end up doing a bunch of lessons, kind of see like, oh, this is more work than I want to do. I guess the dog's just going to be like this. And I have tons of clients that end up frustrating me because they give up on the dog earlier than they should, where again, if the dog is fitting your lifestyle and it's making you happy and the dog is happy, I couldn't care less, honestly. Then I'm happy for you guys. But there's a lot of people who get 75% of the way to their goal and go, isn't this close enough? And then as soon as they stop, things start going backwards instead of forwards. And then things get worse instead of better. And then they'll call me in a year and go, oh yeah, well, he bit my kid now. And I'm like, what do you mean? He loved your kid. Like, what happened? Well, we had this one incident, and then we had this other incident, and then we had 6 more incidents after that. And it kept getting worse, and we didn't do anything about it. And now that like we had a really bad incident, now we're calling you. And I'm like, why didn't you call me the first time?
Right.
Well, why did we wait for all
Because
of
ultimately
this?
they taught that dog that it's
Because-
okay.
Because
Right.
they already knew, a lot of times they know what the answer is. They know what they're supposed to do, but it's work. You have to put in effort here. And when you have kids and a job and this and that, and all of a sudden the dog is the lowest priority and people don't do what they're supposed to.
You hear that, bro?
I hear you.
Get a gerbil.
I already had those.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
I mean, I feel like we could have this for a long time. There's a lot of things to cover.
So actually, yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, I can talk to you for the next 5 hours.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
I
I mean, I love dogs. I had dogs, and I want dogs. I'm passionate about it. This guy hopefully is gonna get one. So yeah, we could do this forever, but we have been doing it for a while. So I'd say that maybe you'll come back
yeah,
and we'll
absolutely.
continue
I'd be
this,
happy to.
right?
Yeah.
Cover whatever we forgot to cover.
Yeah. And if anyone has questions who are listening,
Yeah, where can we find you, or where they can find you?
www.inline, one word, K9, K the letter, and 9 the number, nj.com.
Okay, and we'll link everything down below as well.
Perfect.
Josh, it was good. It was amazing. It was interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Mark,
coming
Alex,
on.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Alex is almost ready to get a dog. Thanks for coming
really
on.
know
don't-
when you
this is the
do.
push. Yeah.
Hey, we'll go pick out that puppy when you're ready.
Thank you. Take you up
Sounds
on
good.
that.
Sounds good. Thanks
It's
a
my
lot.
pleasure, guys.